Well, welcome to City Council. This is somewhat unique. I think it's been well over a year since we had a chance to meet. And so we appreciate you coming and joining us tonight. And those who are on Zoom, welcome to City Council. This is somewhat unique. I think it's been well over a year since we had a chance to meet. That's what it sounds like. So we appreciate you joining us tonight.
Hopefully done.
All right, as you can see, this is me. We have some technical difficulties, so bear with us. We welcome those who are also joining us on Zoom tonight. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. We do have time for public comments at the beginning of our agenda and at the end. I would remind those who would like to participate to please limit their comments to 3 minutes. And would you, if you have your cell phones with you, probably something we're not used to doing is silencing them. So if you would silence your cell phones, we would appreciate it. We'll begin our meeting tonight. We have Councilmember Swanson with us, who is going to start our meeting with an invocation of God and the Pledge of Allegiance. So Councilman Swanson.
Thanks, Mayor. The thought that I have for today is just an expression of gratitude for all of you that are here, and especially for those in the science world that came up with a vaccine so darn quick, and all of the other science things that are making it possible for us to be here. It's amazing to see what we can do when we put our heads together, and you get the really smart people on a very difficult task. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that each of you is here today, and I'm grateful for those that are lending their smarts to the benefit of the rest of us. So if you'll join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Swanson. We appreciate that. I'll unmask here while I'm talking. Before we get into our agenda this evening, I'd like to introduce Sheriff Ryan Arbon, who is the Weber County Sheriff. He has requested a spot on our agenda to recognize some of our police force this evening. So, Sheriff Arbon, do you want to proceed?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. Council, we have and members of the community, we have a wonderful award that we want to give out tonight to North Ogden City Police Department. This is something that we've been planning for some time. And just to give you a little background, there's a story behind this that's worth mentioning. May 30th, I was sitting at home and I got a call from the chief, and the chief says, Ogden is having protests going on right now, and the 30th is going to turn to riot. Can we help them? And I said, how many do they want? They said, Chief Perry said they need 15. So as soon as I hung up, the call came back within 2 minutes later. Chief Perry asked me again, says, look, we just flipped a car in Salt Lake that's going crazy, and there's reports that some of these protesters turned rioters are coming towards Ogden, and they need more. So this call came in at 1:05 to me. We responded to Ogden City at 2:05 with 48 deputies to help Ogden. And I'll tell you what, Chief Watt did a great job working with the public. As you guys know, that there was no incident of damage or looting or problems with Ogden. About an hour later, I went back home. I got a call that one of our officers had some serious smoke inhalation, and he was en route to the hospital. Put my clothes back on and went to the hospital. While I was en route to the hospital to check on Deputy King, I got another call, and it was from one of our sergeants that works in the strike force. And he said, Sheriff, did you hear what's going on in Salt Lake? And I said, yeah, we all know what's going on in Salt Lake. He goes, they need our help. And I said, well, I haven't received a call, which is typical. So I took it upon myself to call dispatch and got a hold of their incident command leader. And I can't remember the lieutenant's name. But I asked the lieutenant, I said, is everything going on all right? And he says, can you please send us everything you got? So I got that call. I said, we'll be down. So I got to the hospital. Deputy King is he's an awesome deputy. He just got off the ambulance. And I said, Deputy King, I do not want to be rude, but this is what's going on. We're being called upon. And he said, Sheriff, I'm right behind you. He didn't go to the hospital. He got in his truck. We had 24 deputies respond, but from 4:30, we asked them to assemble at the sheriff's office. At 6:30, we had 24 ready to go that same day. Sheriff's office responded with 24 deputies, and we got there about 6:37. We got there pretty darn fast. And then we were diverted to City Creek because of the looting. And after we got to the assemble area later, they needed more help. So we called. And then at 12 midnight, we had 22 more deputies from the sheriff's office come down. Of the initial 24, only 2 went home. So we had about 42 deputies stay all the way till 6 a.m. We went down there 4 nights in a row. Or not in a row, it was 2 up Saturday and Sunday at 8, and then we went Wednesday, Thursday the next week. With one of those nights, 61 deputies from the sheriff's office. And just so you understand a little bit about the sheriff's office staff, not one of those deputies were asked to go down. It was all volunteer. They were free. After we did a report and figured out hours and so forth, we discovered that there was 227 police officers from Weber County that went to Salt Lake. And we thought, what a great thing to show about our officers, including North Ogden, of the caliber and integrity and ethics and morals and just that awesomeness that we all look in law enforcement we have. And we wanted to award them. We created, and one other thing I wanted to mention to you is many of us wear these merit bars, and we created a merit bar for this occasion. There's a little story behind it. In the first assembly, before we went to Salt Lake, there was you've probably seen the photo in the stand. It's a camera vision from behind me, camera view behind me to our staff. And in that group, it was discussed that it was very clear that this is a First Amendment moment. We are not going down there to hurt anybody. We're going to make sure everyone has a right to be heard. We also want to protect everybody the property. And so it was a great event. And so tonight, so anyway, we made this ribbon or merit bar. It says First Amendment 2020. So when they wear the Class A's, there's a story behind them. And an intricate part of that story is North Ogden Police Department. And we want to honor is Chief, you want to bring up your command staff and we want to give you an award. So we created an agency award. Then we have individual awards. So I hold this up. So we decided to give the award to every agency within the county that came. Come on up. Please do. And so the patches represent all the agencies that went down to Salt Lake. And I don't know if you can see it, but every name, all 227 officers from Weber County are written in this. And on the top, it says, "We the people." You know, a lot of times we forget about what the Constitution does for us. But it was so cool to see, Chief, your staff go down there. All of us were on the front lines and protecting everybody's right to free speech. And with that, I want to give North Ogden PD and its chief thanks for the support and give them an applause for their outstanding service. All right, and then let's see, Officer, thank you. Persalmon, are you here? And Watkins? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Farnsworth? Sims Rock? I say your name right. Yeah, Rhodes. Right.
Tell the officers to stick.
Congratulations. All right, thanks again. Congratulations. Thank you.
Getting a little communication that it's hard to hear with our masks on, so I guess when we talk in the future, we'll take them off, so thank you, public on Zoom can hear us. Before we get into the agenda, I too want to recognize our police force. Many of you may know or have read that North Ogden was just identified as the 5th safest city in Utah. I don't think that happens by accident. Actually, I believe it was the only city in Weaver County that was in the top 10, if I'm correct. So I want to recognize our police force tonight for their efforts and what they do in our community. And as I was thinking about this, I'm going to put Chief Quinney on the spot here. I'm going to ask Chief Quinney to give us an idea on how that happens. So Chief, can you tell us some of the things that have made us one of the top 5 safest cities in the state of Utah?
You bet, you're looking at them. So it's our partnership, I think, as much as anything with our community. And we're part of the community and the community is part of us. And they're our #1 partner, they're our eyes and ears. We have a great partnership. And I don't think without this community, without the dedication of these guys here, that the top 5 would happen. And also, our approach to policing. We believe that proactive police work is #1 above any other form of police work. We can react to crime all day long, and that does nothing to stop it. Criminals aren't afraid of punishment; they're afraid of getting caught. And that's a fact. Getting caught, these guys out there in the middle of the night, middle of the day, weekends, just contacting people, making traffic stops, finding fugitives, drugs, drunks, everything in between, any hour of the day. And they're great at it. So honestly, I think those 2 things, our partnership and these guys out there working, #1.
Well, I believe it all starts with leadership, Chief. So you do have a good team, but thank you for the work you do, and please take our sincerest recognition for the job you do for us as citizens. So just wanted to recognize that it's not every day that you're in the top 5. Just want to let you know the Chiefs made the commitment to be #1 next year, so you guys might want to get started.
Come on, we can do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. One other thing before we get into our agenda tonight. Councilwoman Stover will probably be mad at me, but I want to recognize passing her brother, who was a classmate of mine this week at the early age of 65. So we just want to let you know that we're thinking about you, Cheryl, and hope things work out for you and Don's family. Okay, with that, we'll get into our consent agenda this evening. Council, are there any conflicts of interest that you have to disclose this evening based upon items on our agenda? Anyone? Councilman Barker.
I have a cousin here tonight that's doing a presentation. I don't know if we're making any decisions, but we do have a family member presenting tonight.
All right, thank you for making us aware of that. I don't see where that would exclude you from participating, but thanks for letting us know that.
I'm looking for reasons to get out of
Well, they're pretty tough to come by these days, councilman, so. All right, with that, we'll enter into item number 2 on our agenda, which is consideration for the March 2nd and March 9th city council meetings to approve those. Council, have you had a chance to review those? Do you have any corrections, comments? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to approve those minutes. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Swanson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes of those 2 meetings, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We'll now enter into our active agenda. We'll start this evening with public comments. Once again, if I could just remind you, no need to state your address, but if you would state your name, and if you're a resident of North Ogden, and then please limit your comments to 3 minutes, I would appreciate it. So those who'd like to make comments, if they would come to the podium here, and we'll get started.
Right, I guess I'll go first and get over with Stephanie Casey. I am a North Ogden resident. Tonight, there are a couple of items on the agenda I have concerns with. The first being our parks. The parks budget is one of the highest in the city. The amount of hazard, safety, and maintenance issues are a huge concern. Parks and public spaces Parks are public spaces that play a vital role in the social and physical well-being of our city and community. With the pandemic and political influence this past year, we are all needing to reconnect with neighbors and finding ways for community engagement. These public spaces should be maintained by prioritizing the care and safety of our community. We have many unaddressed safety issues and hazards based on the NRPA's daily dozen 12-point playground safety checklist. It's written out and easy to follow. We have a lot of issues. Parks serve as the heart of their communities, promoting community wellness. Keeping with the thought of community and wellness and building a stronger community, I would like to voice my support for the North Ogden City Police Department. In the past few years, Riverton, Harriman, and Cottonwood cities, and now Taylorsville, are leaving the Salt Lake City Unified Police Department to form their own force. The primary reason given by Taylorsville City Council Chairwoman Harker was the desire to have more influence and control over police services. Are we willing to lose that influence? She also said, when you think about the role of community governance, maintaining and supporting a strong police force is vital. I agree with that. I think we should take a page out of the book of these 4 cities and learn from their on-hand experience. I believe it is time to start investing in North Ogden as a community, providing existing residents with the basics that provide a sense of community, safety, and unity. Poor choices made previously should not be perpetuated at the expense of our safety and the loss of our own in-house police department.
Mayor, we have someone on Zoom. Randall Wynn would like to make a comment.
And Randy, if you'd like to state your name and if you're a resident, and we'll listen to your comment, please.
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay.
Randall Wynn of North Ogden. I would just like to express gratitude to having Sheriff Arbin here tonight. I think he will present a real option for us in a discussion that we've had not too many options, I don't think. And I think we'll be left with probably in a position to decide whether the unique and control that we have over the unique police force we have and attention they give us and the control we have of our own police department would outweigh the cost savings. And I don't have an opinion that I'm wanting to express, but I think this will be one of the only legitimate options we have, which would also keep us from having to build a new police station, which is a significant thing. But so I'm happy that you're having this, and I hope to listen along with you to help make up my mind in it. But I think it's a very important discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
Mayor, we have somebody, family would like to make a comment.
Okay, whoever that is, if you'd state your name, if you're a resident of North Ogden.
Oh, I think this might be me. Sean Maynard. I own the North Ogden Cannery. I am item number 8 on the agenda. And I just wanted to let you know I'm available if you have any questions when you get to that point.
Okay, thank you for making us aware of that. Katie, do we have anybody?
We do. Amelia Marshall Miller would like to make a comment.
Okay.
Hello. Hi. I am a North Ogden resident, and I just wanted to say that I'm currently very opposed to the proposal of the county sheriff's office taking over policing in our city. For one, I would really like to see the sheriff focusing on enforcing laws and not enacting resolutions about declaring our county a Second Amendment sanctuary, which could result precisely in not enforcing gun control laws. The sheriff should be focusing on his job instead of taking time to go on national TV to talk about this. Second, I would ask the council to consider more than just the financial costs of the county taking over our local law enforcement. I would like to see the council prioritize the approach that will be best for our community. I would like to understand how the options compare on the policies of police accountability, transparency, use of force policies, and trainings for officers about de-escalation tactics, conflict mediation, racial bias, and mental illness. I hope to hear about how the county will support these issues in their proposal today. Thank you.
Thank you. Meg, I think you'd like to make a comment. And Katie, if you'd watch for additional comments online.
Hi, I'm Meg Sanders. I'm in North Ogden. Do I have to take it down? Please. My name is Meg Sanders. I am a North Ogden resident. I wanted to give a shout out to Chief Quinney, and bear with me, I'm terrible at his name, but Detective that man. So I had previously had my car broken into, and this detective has tracked through Davis County, Weber County, and North Ogden, and he has captured this alleged thief who had made his way through multiple counties and nobody got him. It was a North Ogden detective. And this detective has called me and checked in with me. He has called Riverdale Police, who's never called me, and he has come to my home to check things. So obviously I'm very in favor of North Ogden Police and the work that they've done for the city, and you deserve a building.
We have Coraline Hialta. Hitala.
Hi, I am a North Ogden resident, Coraline Hialta, over at the Village of Prominence. We've got a few issues over here still with lighting, parking, and fencing. They ended up building a 4-foot retaining wall instead of raising a walking path over by the assisted living center. And the backs of the residents that are over there, there's no fencing. So they've got this 4-foot drop, and it's 55 and older people, that it's very unsafe. And the builder has said that he has no intention of putting up any fencing. We're concerned about that. Also wondering if you'd heard anything from the Corps of Engineers about them trying to move the creek for the 3 lots that don't have enough setback. And also we've been told that there's supposed to be a 10-foot easement back there for a walking path that connects to 1900 North. Well, that would take out at least 15 feet of my property that I paid extra for a larger lot. So I don't know what kind of rights we have or what our plan of attack to try and get this resolved with the developer, if we come through the city to get this taken care of or double checked. I've sent a couple of emails. I've received some mapping back, but no help on trying to figure out what we can do to hold the developer accountable. We still have none of the amenities that our HOA is paying for. And none of us realize that our streets were going to be private instead of city. So we're paying city taxes, but we've got this supposed private roads. No streetlights. Just a ripe situation for criminal activity in this area. And if the council had any suggestions or how we can go about to try and figure out what means we have to work with this developer. Also, we've been told that they were talking about putting up a 3-story with an underground parking, 68 unit assisted, well, 55 and older apartments in the center part of the subdivision. And there's no parking as it is, let alone, I don't know how you would do underground parking with the water table.
Okay, thank you. Probably can't answer all those questions. I do believe that we, at this point, don't have an answer from the Army Corps of Engineers on moving of the creek that I'm aware of. John, any?
That's correct, Mayor.
If we could, if you could text Katie Gerard, our recorder, your telephone number, we'll have someone get in contact with you. I believe that the facility you're talking about was approved in the initial plans for that development. I believe it's actually 4 stories of apartments. It kind of slopes from the east to the west. But my understanding, that was approved as part of the initial development. Is that correct, John?
Yes, Mayor.
So if you would text Katie Gerard, our city recorder, once again, your phone number, we'll get in contact with you and see if we can help with the other questions you have. Okay.
All right. Yeah, the maps that we got when we were picking out our lots here had nothing in the center there. So I don't know if that was the developer that put out those maps with nothing in the middle. And then all of a sudden we've got a 4-story monstrosity, let alone however many dogs, additional, and vehicles. So I appreciate that. Can I just send that on the chat, or how do I get a hold of her?
You can do that. Just send it on the chat and she'll pick it up.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Katie, do we have other comments?
We do. Still, Susan Kilborn would like to make a comment.
Okay, Susan Kilborn, please.
Hello, Susan Kilborn, 33-year-long proud resident.
Just cut out just a second.
I think we lost you, Susan.
Can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay. Susan Kilborn, 33-year-long proud resident of North Ogden, Utah. And at this point, I just have a question on point of order. I understand that there is going to be a presentation by Sheriff Arbonne, and I am asking if there will be public discussion after his presentation, as I don't want to jump the gun with my comments until I have benefit of hearing what he has come here to say.
We most likely will not be having open discussion after Sheriff Arbonne's presentation. There will be public comments at the end of our meeting, but I don't believe we'll be having a public hearing on the issue. It surely will be discussed, and he'll be making his presentation to the council. So you have 2 options: either make your comment now or at the end of the meeting.
Okay, I guess then I am pressed to make my comments now. And I want to stand with the other citizens who have indicated that they are not in favor of blanket, sorry, I have a yappy dog, coverage of our public safety in the hands of the Weber County Sheriff's Department for numerous reasons. I've been requesting information under FOIA on response times and other issues relevant to participating in this venture. And obviously government gears don't move quickly, so I don't have that information at my disposal at this time. However, I just want to point out that I am adamantly and firmly against dissolving what we have now in place as a, what I believe, very efficient and obviously doing their job well police department, since we are the 5th safest city in the state of Utah. Now is not the time to pinch pennies. We don't need a tarp thrown over a leaking roof. Now is the time to make the investment. We have an opportunity for a bond at a low rate to do something that should have been and has been talked about since the year 2017, if memory serves well. I have nothing against Sheriff Arbonne, other than I am not very happy about him bringing his personal interests on declaring Weber County a Second Amendment amnesty area. And I will point out that in his media presentation, while he was promoting this, he indicated that private citizens need to be armed because response time could be 15 to 20 minutes until there is a response. Second, I want to point out a personal experience I have. I've never seen a Weber County Sheriff's car patrolling in my area. I live on a cul-de-sac. I've seen many patrols in the area from the North Ogden City Police Department. And at one point at about 10:20 at night, we received a knock on our door from a North Ogden City police officer reminding us to close our garage door. I have an expensive car parked in the garage, and there's 2 sets of expensive ping golf clubs. And we had mistakenly not closed our garage door. I want to appreciate the fact that that's community serving community, and that's not the kind of coverage I believe we're going to get, nor have I read about in blanket coverage. I appreciate your time, and I put my trust in the city council to make the right decision on this.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Katie, do we have other comments?
Not at this time.
Anyone present like to make a comment?
My name is Jared Flandro. I'm a resident of North Ogden City. And I'd like to voice my excitement for what Sheriff Arbonne has to present. I think the North Ogden Police Department has a phenomenal department here. I'm really proud to live in this city and have them. And kind of what I've read and what I've seen, I think the Sheriff's Office can improve and make the great officers here in North Ogden even better, and make our community, why be 5th safest community? Why not become number 1? And I think with the Sheriff's Office, that's a potential that we can accomplish.
Can you spell your last name, please?
FLANDRO.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else present who would like to make a comment? If not, we will move into item number. You have a comment?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
It's about item number 8, given that we have Mr. Maynard on the line. Mr. Maynard is not a resident of North Ogden, and I'm sure he would like to spend his evening doing something other than listening to the riveting conversation that we're going to be having. If we could move with council's permission, move number 8 to this point in the agenda. And it's a simple request to start the process for the annexation very quick and easy, and Mr. Maynard can be on his way, and we can then move into the meat of the meeting.
Would you like to make a motion to move that item?
I would, Mayor, I'll move that we move item number 8 to this point in the agenda.
Second. Second, any discussion? All in favor of moving this item to number 4 on our agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's proceed with item number 8, which is now item number 4. And I think Susan will be making that presentation. Is she available? Or John, you're going to do that?
Yeah, she asked me to step in just because of the potential length of the meeting.
Just want to point out that's a downgrade.
It is, it is. So this is for a property at 304 East 2000 North. To better understand, that's west of the cannery and the Looking Glass Photography, is that the right? Crystal Leaf Photography, that's right. And this would be to bring that property in. They don't have a recommended zone yet, but that will come from the planning commission after the planning commission reviews. This is basically just accepting the petition, starting the paperwork side, and there'll be a future public hearing as well as some meetings and notices with planning commission to come back to the council for the ultimate decision in roughly 60 to 90 days, depending on how the timeline runs. So all we need from the council is to accept the formal application, and that will start the process. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to accept the application for annexation?
I move that we accept that petition for annexation.
Thank you. Councilman Severing, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Ekstrom. Any further discussion? Not all in favor of accepting the petition for annexation, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, council.
With that, we'll start on agenda number now 5, which will be a presentation by the Sheriff's Department. While they're preparing and coming up, I would just like to say 2 things. Some people have asked how people get on the agenda. People can get on the agenda to make a presentation with the one council member approving that, or the mayor. And so perhaps it was an oversight last time, but I think the sheriff was planning on making a presentation, but no one had put him on the agenda. Second thing is apparently unintentionally, I offended some of the sheriff's office, and I offer my sincere apologies. That was surely not my intention at all. And so with that, we will start the presentation with Sheriff Arbon.
Mayor, council, thank you and welcome. Glad that you could come to my meeting today on the presentation. Thank you. Residents, thank you for participating. There's a lot of things we're going to go over. But let me go over just before I get into the presentation. There's a couple of things that I believe that need to be made clear before I go forward. About September last year, Chief Quinney asked me to attend the open house to support the construction of the new public safety building, which I support. I said that in last council meeting that I support the choices and desires of what the city council decides on. I attended the open house meetings. I went around with groups and there's truth. There needs to be something done with the facility here. I support that. Since that time, a conversation through what I found through a planning commission member and a city manager about the option of saving money and what options are there. There was discussion of a district, and there was a question of what about the sheriff's office. Since then, you can imagine the rumors that have gone out. This is something that the sheriff's office did not seek, did not ask for. We are a partner in this county. And we serve 8 contract cities and all the unincorporated. And here you have several individuals are just wanting to know an option. We are here to show what the sheriff's office does. I have fielded a lot of concerns, some from mayor and council and from citizens. And so with a phenomenal staff that I have at the sheriff's office with lots of experience, some of them worked in some capacity with North Ogden, Plain City, or excuse me, Pleasant View and Harrisville, have a good feel of this area. And so I just want to make this clear that this is something that we're not bidding for. This is not an RFP by any chance or by any means, but we want to respond to the request of showing exactly what would it look like if North Ogden came over. Quite candidly, I would probably sleep better if North Ogden didn't come to the sheriff's office. It's a tough job. Chief Quinn, I know he's got a tough job. It's hard work, isn't it, being chief? Yeah, it is, and it's hard. But we also noted that there was that move to come over. I think it would be a great move too. I can clearly articulate and argue the benefits of both sides. Whether you're with the city, keeping your own agency. I started the sheriff's office years ago as a bailiff. Went to Missouri, was a state marshal there, graduated from school. So I got a real good look at state function. Clearfield City for a number of years, which is fully staffed with civilians, 50-man department and women. And then also Perry, which is much smaller. So I have good insight. I can argue, again, both sides, which is better. But based on what I've been asked to present tonight, we're going to go through this presentation. Not too fast, but somewhat quickly, because we know time is valuable. I also want to thank Mayor Berube. We had a discussion about a year ago about both of us not really in politics in our career. Then when we got elected, not too far apart, we both agreed that this is something we didn't expect. It's quite a challenge and it's tough. And elected officials, thank you so much for serving. I know it's tough sometimes, but it's also can be very rewarding. So with that, we'll go ahead and start. So, one more thing. I want to introduce the staff that's with me today. I got Chief Adams, he's over support, and he will do a presentation focused on, the numbers and how we come up with based on the information and technology that we've received from our statistics and numbers. I got Lieutenant Courtney Ryan, who's over CSI and investigations. And then I got Sergeant Kylie Slater, who's all of them, I think combined, all of us together, 80 to 90 years police service. All right, we're not taking questions, correct? Correct. All right, let's go forward. All right. All right, am I supposed to be pointing this somewhere else? Yes. There we go. All right, I think I got it. Is it all right if I stand here, Mayor? Yeah. All right, right off the bat, we're going to get right out of the open. We determined there's a population of 20,500 in North Ogden. The budget that we were told that will be this coming year is $2.7 million. With the addition of the police station, it'll be it's an $11 million build with a cost of $600,000 per year over 20 years. The revised estimated budget of $3.3 million the first year. The Weber County Sheriff's Office proposal is that our cost for service will be $2,007,828. And then if you not include the building, it'd be a savings of almost $700,000 a year. And then also, if you include the building, it'd be a saving of $1,292,000, or to make it easier, about $1.3 million a year. One of the cost savings to consider that when we give you these numbers, a lot of times people want to know how correct is this. When there's a move like this, the city can save money in other places like your liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance, attorney's costs, physical maintenance costs. With the reduction of the force, you also, there's less workload for other auxiliary and support services to the police department. Another consideration with savings is where could you reallocate the money? In some of our cities that we work with, they set aside budgets outside of the sheriff's office. They include safety signs, traffic control devices, redoing roads, all kinds of things, other programs, DARE, NOVA, etc. All right, I lost signal.
Yeah, I don't, it just,
So Katie, you have to stay clicked on the PDF or the presentation or yeah.
Okay, North Ogden City. All right, staffing. This is something that we're committed to do. All sworn officers will have employment with the Weaver County Sheriff's Office as a sworn officer. Maintain same rank and seniority. All officers will maintain same wage or a higher wage if the move occurs. Civilian records office staff will have similar positions at wage or higher wage than they currently have. Officers from North Ogden Police Department will initially be assigned to the North Ogden precinct, and Weaver County benefits will be included. Right now, there's about 380 employees with the Sheriff's Office. This is our command staff and supervisor breakdown. 1 sheriff, 3 chiefs, 2 captains, which are in corrections, 10 lieutenants, 29 sergeants, 45 corporals, 5 managers, 11 leads, and 2 directors. And the directors, emergency management and animal shelter. One of the reasons that we wanted to show some of these numbers is there's always a question, well, if I come over, what are my opportunities for advancement? We have a lot of positions that are in as supervisor and command staff that can be available. All right, one of the questions that we get, what is general fund positions cover the sheriff's office versus contract city? There's a core amount of officers that's covered through general fund. It's basically money that you guys are already paying for. It's 31, and those are the positions that it covers. There's a lieutenant investigations, which is Lieutenant Ryan is here today. Fraud, identity, theft detectives, child abuse, ICAC, and an area detective. And you can see the numbers on the left. And then on the right, you can see the contract cities. And so that's where the money that the contract cities pay for fund is the positions that are on the right, which at the end of this year, our county commission allowed us to add 8 additional officers this year. So we'll be fully staffed this year, or topped out at 80 positions this year. Enforcement, this is what it looks like. There's 80, as you can tell, the asterisk is there. That's the asterisk. The reason why I put that there is right now, I think we are 76, but we get staggered new positions throughout the year. So the end of the year will top out at 80. The blue is contract city, general fund money, and the black figures are the ones that represent contract city. Enforcement, if with the addition of North Ogden City, we estimate that will bring 15 positions over, which will bring us up to 95. And we'll talk a little bit more about the positions and how that will roll out later in this presentation. I'm going to turn this over to Lieutenant Courtney Ryan.
So just to kind of go through, like the sheriff said, I'm the lieutenant over the investigations bureau. I oversee CSI and our investigations and also our jail investigations. So this just kind of breaks down our investigations unit and what it looks like. 1 lieutenant, 2 sergeants. One of those sergeants is over full-time at the strike force, oversees the gang and the agent over at the strike force. We have 2 corporals, and then our detectives, area detectives, this kind of major crime detectives. We also contribute 1 person over to the ATAC, the Area Tactical Analysis Center, which is kind of the way that policing is going these days, and with data and all the technical forensic type stuff that happens with those computer things that we are so dependent upon. Then we also have a full-time gang detective That gang detective works with our corrections staff, also is out, working on the streets. Works with a team of gang detectives that kind of keep their thumb on what's going on in the gang world throughout our county. And then a narcotics officer that's a full-time narcotics agent. And then we have 2 jail investigators that we just incorporated into our investigation team. So all these detectives, this whole bureau is available at any time. Some of the specialties that we have 2 child crime detectives, 1 financial and an elder abuse. Internet crimes against children, we have one of those that he also was assigned to the federal task force and also the state ICAC task force, which brings in a lot of resources from the FBI, Homeland Security, and then some state resources as well. We have 6 detectives that are assigned to the homicide task force. I just actually got a text right now that Ogden's got a suspicious death, and 5 of my detectives are headed up to Ogden to assist with that case. One of our detectives is part of the SWAT team. So he's got that background in the SWAT. Securus call platform, that's the jail phone system that they use. It's a huge benefit to all the agencies in Weber County because our criminals are making phone calls. A lot of times our area detectives around Weber County are relying on those phone calls and stuff to improve their cases. We have 4 detectives that do a little bit of work with the VFAST, which is the U.S. Marshals Violent Fugitive Apprehension Team. We got some real bad guy out there on the street. We have that resource to use to go and track him down and find him. Forensic interview, that's child. The technique that's used to interview children. We have 4 certified detectives. Cell phone analysis, forensic analysis examiners. We have 3 storage. We have a canine. We call him the porn dog, for lack of a better term. But he goes out and seeks electronics. So if somebody, just as much as people hide their drugs, we're finding now that those that are into the child porn and all that, they're hiding their devices. We're also seeing cameras being placed in odd things, a light socket, different things like that are using to eavesdrop on people. That dog is able to pick up the odor of the electronics and help us out. We have that detective assigned to the FBI Child Exploitation Task Force. And the gang intelligence, that SIAC gang intelligence is a statewide thing, and then the strike force engaged. This is a picture of a homicide. This was a case that came out of Pleasant View, but the gal her body was discovered in the Ogden Canyon. This is a collaborative effort. This is the team coming together and going over where they're at. Is there a pointer on this thing? Nope, I hit the wrong button. So this is a county attorney that's here working with our team. This is an investigator from the Weber County Attorney's Office that is there assisting as well. And then that group of our detectives. That case was a great case that they all worked and put their heart and soul into, and we were able to get an arrest. And it's going through the court process now. So our school resource officers, a huge part of what we do is wanting to get into our schools, educate our kids. We have full-time SROs in our junior high and high schools, and then they kind of split the coverage with our elementary. So we have 3 high schools and 4 junior highs that we use. We also teach the NOVA program in our elementary schools, and those officers are trained and certified to teach the NOVA program, which is similar to what the DARE program is. It's just a different style. Our canine deputies, we have 5 canines. One is a dual purpose, 2 of them are dual purpose dogs. There's a mistake on there. Dual purpose narcotics and patrol. That's an apprehension dog that can go and sniff and find the bad guys or bite the bad guy if it came to that. We have one that's just a single purpose narcotics dog, 1 explosive detector dog, and 1 electronic detecting dog. So we've got a good span of expertise with our canine unit. The BFAST team, the violent apprehension team with the marshals, we have 4, just again, some of the things that we participate in. Our IT department, so we have 3 IT technicians, I don't know what the proper term for that is, that work in our office full-time. They're available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then we also have the support of the county's IT department, that if we have something that's on a much larger scale, we have that available to us as well. Crime scene investigations, currently there's 8 crime scene investigators, and I will go out on a limb and say this is the best crime scene investigation team in the Western United States. They are just a phenomenal team that do a great job and just really help us out a lot in Weber County. Sorry. Our support services, currently we have 3 records clerks that are assigned to the patrol and our law enforcement division. They're the ones that process all of our reports, the citations. They're really the backbone of what happens in our office. Our fleet department, we have a lieutenant that is over our fleet at the office. And then we have the county's main fleet personnel, and then mechanics on there that do all of our servicing and all that. Our motors, we have 13 motors that are available at any time to be out and about, riding and enforcing traffic. Just to give you an idea of what our motors can do, we assigned one of our deputies out to a motorist shift last summer. In 1 month, he wrote 217 citations in a single month, riding a motorcycle in July. And just the enforcement, the traffic enforcement. Now, a lot of people will think, why is that cool? Well, our traffic enforcement reduces the amount of accidents we have, reduces the amount of injuries that our citizens sustain during those accidents, and our fatalities. Our fatalities went down 83% last year with our traffic enforcement. So a great tool to use. Major incidents, this is equipment that's available anytime. This is available countywide. These are regional assets. But our mobile command, our CSI lab, mobile CSI lab, and our AMRAP. Is there a picture of the AMRAP? That's if things really go bad, that's what we're going to pull out. It's a big armored vehicle that we can get in and rescue citizens. But a lot of the major incidents that happen in Weber County, it's a team effort. No matter where it happens. Like I just explained, Ogden City, the biggest law enforcement agency that we have here in Weber County, they still need help on cases. So we all pitch in. I believe North Ogden has task force members as well that are probably headed out to help with the suspicious death as well. But just more resources that we have. This will just kind of show you the breakdown, what it looks like, what's available at any time. Like the sheriff mentioned earlier, we get a phone call that Salt Lake needs some help. We send 61 deputies down to Salt Lake to help. That's not pulling all the resources. That's still leaving our patrol staff and our correction staff in place. Those are other members of the team in Weber County that are available to respond. You get a major incident, we'll have all hands on deck with CSI, our staff, our investigations unit. The day that this is the day that Officer Lyday was killed in Ogden. You can see the mobile command, the CSI lab truck is out there. One thing that stands out to me, and it's not just that I was the investigations lieutenant, and I like to tout myself. I wasn't the lieutenant at the time that this happened. But when this took place, Ogden City Police asked our investigations unit to handle this. And when something of this magnitude happens in your city and you have the confidence to reach out to the sheriff's office and say, hey, we want your guys to investigate this case. That's huge. That means a lot. That shows the quality of work the experience that we bring to the table with our officers. Search and rescue. A lot of times it's misconception that search and rescue just goes and rescues people up in the mountain. Now they do that, they do it a lot, and they do it very well. But we've used CSI to search for missing or endangered elderly people that have wandered off. We've used search and rescue for missing kids. We've used them for evidence searches. We use them for a lot of different things, and now we've incorporated a drone program, and that started with our search and rescue, and now it's kind of rolling into our patrol functions. But a great asset that would be available at any time. That's what in the blue. That's what's available that would just respond out at any given time. Currently, there's 72 volunteers on the team. The volunteers in policing. We started this when Sheriff Arbon took over as sheriff 2 years ago. We have a great rollout with it. We're continually getting more and more people, but our VIPS program is citizens that want to go out. Somebody mentioned earlier, I can't remember who it was. Oh, I think it was the chief, the eyes and ears of what's going on in the city. You get your community members involved in things like this, it really brings out, that desire to make the community better. And they're out. We have patrol cars that have orange lights on them. They're marked up as volunteer so that they're not mistaken for a law enforcement vehicle, and they come out and help. Last fall, when we had that really bad windstorm, we had a number of our VIPs come out and help with blocking roads that we had trees and power lines down. They've assisted with homicide scenes that an officer involved shootings, blocking the road. Doesn't tie up our sworn staff. They can go out there and do that. And 13 of them are available at any time out of the 41 that we have available right now throughout the county. Our mobile command, we have a logistics team that's responsible for the mobile command. The request comes in, they get it up and going and take it to the scene and get it all set up. With the mobile command comes, if it's a cold day, we don't get to pick our environment and the time of day that these things happen. They come, they'll roll out heaters, they'll bring tents, they'll bring whatever is needed, and also provide a place for us to get out of the weather and strategize what we're doing and stuff. So our corrections deputy, any given time we could have 75 corrections deputies ready to roll, just like we saw at the riots, just ready to go at any given time. So 270 sworn corrections deputies, that's a huge backup when we need to staff an event. Oftentimes we'll use the corrections deputies for assignments at the Weber County Fair, and so it just doubles our numbers. Keep hitting twice there, sorry. One of the best things that I think that we've done over the past couple of years and in law enforcement in general is starting to take care of our own peer support groups. We have several chaplains that 6 of them that are part of our office, and they just drop in whenever. Unfortunately, we had a terrible experience the last couple of weeks with the death of one of our corrections officers. These guys were there all day, several days. They volunteer their time and they do a fantastic job. We have a victim advocate. This kind of picture down on the right bottom corner is it's a soft interview room, as we call it. If there's a victim or something that we need to talk to, a fragile situation, we have a nice, comfortable place where they can come and sit down and kind of feel more at home and be able to talk about what has taken place. This shows you kind of what we have behind the scenes. 2 grandma clerks. You never realize how much people are out there requesting information. I'm sure the chief could speak to that. You get some of the most oddball requests that come in, and We have 2 clerks that work on grandma requests. Internal affairs, we have 2 staff members, a lieutenant and a sergeant that handle internal affairs. We have 5 human resources personnel that help us through all of our hiring and disciplinary and all of that. And then we also have a use of force committee that reviews every use of force that comes through our office and go through with a fine tooth comb and see if there's an issue with training and also identify if there was a bad use of force. County Attorney's Office, the Civil Division, they have 5 attorneys assigned to the Civil Division. Really, one of those pretty much could, work with us full time, but they spend a lot of time with us when we, MOUs, contracts, issues that we're dealing with. So they commit a lot. The prosecution for adult offenders is 14, and then there's 2 juvenile court prosecutors available to us.
All right, so Lieutenant Ryan talked about kind of the core functions of the sheriff's office. So there's stuff here that's a little different than that. We talked about the volunteers and police service a little bit earlier, but we got 41. We offer the training. This is a great system. One situation that we had, our volunteers were so involved, is we got a lot of vehicle thefts and car burgs out there in one part of West Haven. And our team assembled, I think, 16 of our volunteers that came out on their own at midnight and stayed till 6 a.m. We had several arrests, a couple of burgs in progress. And it was just a great way to bolster our sheriff's office and our staffing as far as and also getting the citizens. We talk about the eyes and the ears, the citizens, how an important, intricate part they are with our team in law enforcement. And it was a great success. And this really got them excited about helping them protect our cities and neighborhoods. Search and rescue. Some of these slides you saw the earlier one about the mobile command, and there was 10. Reason why we're showing you these things is I was asked in this presentation from employees to include what can they have coming to the sheriff's office, the opportunities and abilities. With search and rescue, we have a lieutenant, a sergeant, and a corporal to help facilitate. That's what they do. And there's a lot of things they can help with the mobile command center. They train, they learn how to start it up, get it all level and operate it. Professional standards and training. This is something that when I came on board, I think we had 2 people. We changed it to 7. We are heavily emphasized on training. I can't remember the individual's name earlier that made comments if we were doing certain types of training. And a lot of these are, some of the training that she covered was just introduced into legislation and it was passed. Our officers average somewhere between 80 and 120 hours of training a year. And we got a great group that's focused just on policy, standards, and then training. We got a training room. Some of the city council mayors been to our training room. Right below this is really neat. 1 week shortly after I came in, we have this, it's called the ODR. That's the bottom picture. So we, before COVID, we averaged about 3,000 meals a day to inmates. And so we got a special deal with this company. It's not jail food. It's a different food, but it's for all the officers. We do anywhere from 50 to 80 meals a day for staff. It's $2 for a hot meal and salad. Currently, we are expanding our training. This is a warehouse and training facility that will house emergency management, warehouse for corrections enforcement, and search and rescue. As you can see in the description, those are the breakout areas. The training room picture you saw earlier, the training room there is a little more than twice the size of the current one we have. And then we have showers, office space, and then we have a flex room that we hope to convert to a gym. I know that there's been some concern about construction. Last year, we got a bid on this building for $1.7 million with a few other things, but for the steel and concrete, our first change order was $407,000. nothing we could do about it. All right, the next part is drones. We've also heavily invested in drones. We believe that this is first responder drones, to me, are advanced and like the radio was to law enforcement back in the 30s. This is what drones are going to do. We also use drones very much in the search and rescue. They have become huge, efficient. It cuts costs. It's accurate, dependable. It gives us eyes on the situation, so we know what proper resources are going in. Part of the 8 additional positions that the county gave us this year, we've got 8 certified FFA pilots. And part of that, we've got 2 vehicles coming in that will be outfitted with response drones to go to calls. So if there's someone at the park with a knife, we can send the individual, the drone pilot there. He's not tied, or she is not tied to calls. They're just for the eyes in the skies, if you will. So we get someone within 2 to 3 mile range, launch the drone is on its way there, so is everyone else. The eyes go on the situation. We can tell quickly if we need to send 1 or 2 persons, or we need to send 50, just depending on what's going on. And also they'll be recording and documenting and making our court records and our cases even that much better. And there's a component of officer accountability too with this. So we're looking forward to this program. This program should be rolling out here in the next couple of weeks. Oh, one other thing about the drones, these drones do not patrol. And there's constitutional issues on that, but these are response drones. If there's a serious situation, we send the drone. There's a couple more pictures of our drones in action. I believe this is up on our beautiful mountains to the east. Honor Guard, that's something that we used to be real popular in law enforcement years ago. We've got a strong Honor Guard group with 16 members. And one of our favorite and best Honor Guard members, as you guys probably knew, was one of our sergeants that recently passed away. And it was pretty emotional. He's an awesome man. He's on the picture on the right, he's the 3rd one from the left, Sergeant Stalker. All right, with the Sheriff's Office, we have 3 public information officers. Lieutenant Ryan, who's here today, he is one of them. You can see him pictured on the lower left. And then on the right, we have a public relations group. And we have one that's on staff, or not on staff, but we contract with, and she's always at our office. And the other ones in the back is, well, actually take that back. One of them is staff, the other one's contract, and the others are videographers that are down in Salt Lake. And they help put together fantastic. You guys have seen our videos and some of the stuff we put out. It's part of the contract we have them is accountability. They do all kinds of analytics to see what the Sheriff's Office image was before to what it is today. A year and a half ago, County Commission said, Sheriff, you guys got a problem with the Sheriff's Office. And I said, yeah, which one are you talking about? And he said, when it comes to county interaction, the Sheriff's Office has 70% of the contact with the public. And obviously it's not always a positive thing for many, but the group has absolutely performed, DJO's performed absolutely well in changing our image with the Sheriff's Office. And we do a great job of putting information out with them. Can you play this? This is a sample of public relations. We got 3 short videos that we want to show you. That little arrow down left might. Left, yeah, might work. Not working. It may have just been the way it came through Google.
Yeah. We're going to give it a shot.
It got lost in Google.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. All right. They are awesome. All right, one thing we wanted to show tonight is just what's available. We have at the Sheriff's Office about specialty training resources. So here's a list of specialties and how many instructors that we have in each category. Chemical agent, 4, firearms, we got 8 instructors, OC 6, taser 4, motors instructors 2, K9, we got 1 instructor, CIT, crisis intervention techniques, 2 instructors, and then the advanced LE rapid response training and the FTOs. That's one of the things that's a struggle with a lot of agencies, is that it's really hard to recruit. And I know Chief Quinney and the other chiefs and myself, that's always been a struggle with us. And sometimes when the trainer's always training, it wears on them, especially when the people leave and just go. And it's like you wasted all that time and money with people that go somewhere else. Chief Roundy a year ago did a presentation with the county commission, and we felt that there were some changes that need to be within the sheriff's office, and working with the auditor's office. Within I think it was a 5-year window, 4-year window of turnover and training, we estimated we lost around $5 million just going somewhere else. It's a lot of money. And that's when you start realizing the loss, you got to do something different. It could be anything from leadership to morale to the atmosphere of the office, or it could be pay. There's lots of things that factor into that. The next slide, you got specialties in traffic and medical. One thing that we love about our office is, sometimes there's concerns about, if you're a law enforcement officer, do you do something else? But we have 20 of our deputies with gear that are EMTs. We have an additional 10 that are advanced EMTs with gear. And right now we have 2 paramedics, but 1 is leaving. So we have a lot of guys out on the patrol that are have medical skills and are ready to go. Specialties continued, bike patrol. You can see that there's a lot of officers that are trained in these other specialties that I was just explaining. We have a group, a lady that works in our office that she's over RAD, which is the rape, aggression, defense. It's mostly free to the public. Sometimes there is a fee attached to it. They train whoever wants to encounter a serious situation. We provide those in our office for training. You can see instructor development. We're heavy on our guys being good enough, if you will, to instruct. And first line supervisor, that's something that we changed at the sheriff's offices. We'll show this a little later, but I'll jump ahead. But our corporals now act as if they're sergeants. We believe that to make a really good leader is to push down that decision-making level to a lower level. There's a lot of agencies that don't have corporals, but we have them. They act as sergeants, and emphasis is a lot on supervisor training. Some more employee discipline, search and rescue. There's we got 7 guys in our office that have been through SWAT. There's the 8 drone certified officers. Lieutenant Ryan touched upon it earlier about peer support. Times are changing, and there's something that needs to be done with our law enforcement officers. I mean, we know that as much as people say that they love us, but they get a ticket. But our officers, and I know Chief Quinney, most of the time, our officers, we don't deal with people on their best behavior. And when you deal with that 8, 10, 12 hours a day, after so many years, that wears on you. So we put in a really good wellness program to help offset that. And we got a lot of peer support programs going on in our sheriff's office for when that's needed. All right, we're getting close. Here's Chief Adams.
Okay. So just going over some of the things we were asked to talk about was priority calls, priority 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Priority 1 call is this life-threatening incident going on right now. Priority 2 is those that just occurred or crimes just occurred. So based on how quickly you need an officer there is how we prioritize calls. So real quick, I know this is really small. I've got to even walk up a little bit closer for myself. So the best way to compare or to help explain what's going on is we compared you guys to the closest city within Weber County, which is West Haven. And so down here at the bottom, we compared the calls that West Haven had in 2018 from burglaries to criminal mischiefs to suspicious vehicles. The blue being North Ogden and the orange being West Haven. Oh, probably about that. And then each line, I believe, represents 50 calls. So this was in 2019. And then again, with similar calls in 2020, those are the calls that came in for that year. So response times, that was brought up today about response times. So if you take all of the response times for Weber County, this is every city, every unincorporated area, all the way to the valley, all the way to west of Zirconium, all the way up to the north end of the south end of Weber County. Our average response time was 8 minutes and 4 seconds going to priority 1 calls, and 10 minutes and 33 seconds responding to priority 2 calls. Now, the most average response time for those calls, when you take and you break them down and see how long it takes us to get to each call, the median response time was 2 minutes and 29 seconds for priority 1 calls and 7 minutes and 3 seconds for priority 2 calls. So obviously, if you're in the valley, you can't drive from Powder Mountain to Snow Basin in 2 minutes or even 10 minutes. So, but this is all of the calls that we responded to in 2020. And that gives us our average times for every call that we responded to for priority 1 or priority 2. For the last 18 months, so July 1, 2019 to December 31st, 2020, we took and we looked at the calls by city. North Ogden is at the far end next to West Haven and Weber County. Those are the calls that are the most similar. So we track the calls by how they come in. So if somebody dials 911, that's the first column. If an officer initiates the call, that means he observes it, he stops and takes action. And then the non-emergency means somebody just called into the non-emergency, the regular line to dispatch. That's how we received the call. So when we look in the last 18 months, North Ogden had 6,138 non-emergency calls compared to West Haven and unincorporated county, which was about 4,800 and 4,600. So really, the unincorporated county and West Haven are really rather similar in the calls and how they come into dispatch. This is total calls by priority again. In North Ogden, we have them to the far right, where we broke it down by priority 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 calls compared to West Haven and Weber County in the last 18 months. And again, the numbers are fairly similar when you compare West Haven and North Ogden together and the unincorporated area. So again, that was a total of 50,783 calls that came in through dispatch. So this is just to kind of, at the end of this really quick, this is based off of what we were provided by North Ogden. So again, average budget for the next year will be 2.7 million. The new police department, 11 million. The estimated cost per sworn officer. That means if you've got to put police officers to work, what is everything underneath of them to keep them going? That is HR. That is your civil department, everything to keep them doing their job and to keep the paperwork flowing. It costs approximately $165,000 per officer based on that information. Weber County right now, with our current budget right now at this moment, with our 78 sworn officers currently working or scheduled on the books, our current cost is approximately $141,445. So that's everything to make those offices work. That's the truck, that's the computer, that's HR, all the attorneys, everything that they need to function and do their job. So this slide is just a little bit of a comparison from 2013 to 21 and 22 based on the percent in budget change. So, and compared to population. So in 2013, you can see the population change according to the census was 1%. Then the next year's 1%, 2%, 1%. And then the estimated budgets that North Ogden had gives you 6%, then a 13%. But if you look from 2013 to 2021 and 2022, with the new building, it's looking at approximately a 61% increase in the police department with an 18% increase in your population. If you drop down to the Weber County Sheriff's Office, based on our population that we covered, so that's contract cities and unincorporated county in 2013, with our population being at 58,000. Fast forward to 2021, you see our population at 73,139. So a 26% increase in population. And if you look from 2013 to 2021 with our budget, you see a 23% increase in our budget. Now, a caveat with that is there was a really hard time where we actually reduced several positions. And currently, if you look right now, we go from 2020 to 2021 with a 15% increase. That's because we're trying to add staff back. And so just to understand a little bit of what's going on, where we reduced several positions, was having difficulty hiring to now. So it just gives a little bit of explanation of why that 23% is there. So Sheriff's Office, our options. So right now, the current budget and the cost per FTE is $141,000. When we add the additional officers, our cost per FTE is going to actually go up to approximately $144,000. Now we realize that every city is not the same. There's differences, and nobody's ever going to be identical. And what one city needs, it won't match to what North Ogden needs. It'll never be the same. So with that is if the city and the mayor, if they chose to come with the sheriff's office and you're like, look, great, we love the 15 officers you gave us, but we want one more officer to do this. We want 2 more officers to do that. It's just the cost of the FTE. So it would be whatever the current budget cost for an FTE, which would be $141,000 or $144,000, depending on where we're currently at. This is just, we put this up there so you can see what's going on with our different cities that we currently work with. And if we plugged North Ogden into it, how would that work? What would it look? These are the formulas that we work with the different mayors on that help them to adjust and calculate the budget moving forward, know what the law enforcement is going to cost and the approximate cost with that.
Hi, so I'm Kylie Slater, one of our patrol sergeants in the Enforcement Bureau. A little bit about me. I started back in 2001 as a dispatcher. I spent 10 years there. Worked with Councilman Barker. And in 2010, I went into law enforcement. I started with Pleasant View Police, just to the west of you guys here. Worked with Chief, then Sergeant Winnie as a baby cop. Born and raised in the area. So coming from the Sheriff Arbonne and a group of us were put together to look at what the staffing would look like. So you've heard the number 80 tonight. This is an org chart showing from the sheriff down to the chief and kind of how we're structured currently. As you can see, the lieutenants there at the top, they are our shift supervisors. They don't work the shifts that we work, but they oversee those. So you'll see our sergeants are watch commanders, and under each watch commander, they are assigned corporals. So it's a little bit of a different rank structure. But it provides the same services. So our corporals do what a lot of sergeants in other cities do. So that's what our current staffing looks like. This is what the group of us put together based on what the city, the numbers that were kind of proposed. This is what would be on shift. So we work 12-hour shifts. We'd have the 2 corporals or a corporal and 2 deputies per shift per day. So working the 12s, there's 2 on, 2 off, and so forth. So that would be 3 full-time bodies during for patrol. There's 2 investigators and a school resource officer for each shift. This is what the staffing would look like going to, or if North Ogden were to join us. So this is kind of the org chart, how it changes. Everything in the green is going to be what North Ogden would bring to our current staffing levels or our on-duty crews. You can see that there would be its own supervisor that would be in the city and 2 deputies. With the detectives, the SROs, and then the other resources that we've talked about tonight, the traffic bureau and those things, you would have those resources in the city as well.
All right, just to wrap this up, again, thank you all for your time and attention to these messages. Before you put that on, sorry, let me go back. So a couple of main points just to consolidate. The question is what is the sheriff's office going to do on the ground? So when Chief Quinney gave us the information, sometimes there's on the shift schedule, there's 2 people on at certain times of the day. Sometimes there's 4. Is that correct, Chief? So what we're proposing is that there will be 3 on. And I know in some cities that the sergeant, like in our case, would be the corporal, sometimes don't take calls or they be selected. Those 3, the corporal and the deputy, the 3 for North Ogden City, will all be taking calls. There is a sergeant that will be on the shift, which is the watch commander. And then all the other resources are available. They're across the county too. That's our proposal to the city as far as, because the biggest question we have is boots on the ground and response times. I know that there was a question about our response times at one point being a long time. But you know, when you have the deputies in the city working where they will be, those response times will be indicative of what we showed you earlier. Not like we're responding to the top of Monte Cristo, which takes time, but those response times will be pretty consistent with what North Ogden has now and what we do with other cities with the county or the cities that we serve. Again, those are the cost savings I explained earlier, and I know that we're not taking questions, but I'm going to stay outside, but far away, Katie, right far away from here, so we're not disturbing. If you have any questions for me, I'll stay around for that. Mayor, that concludes our presentation.
Thank you, Sheriff. Before you do depart, council, do you have any questions? Okay, let me just say, we're dealing with a bit of an issue here because our officers are feeling uncertainty here. And they're saying, well, if the sheriff's office is offering a $4,000 bonus for sign-on, and we're gonna go there anyway, let's just depart now. Council, we're at risk with our department right now because of this issue. So it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed quickly. This is something we can't kick down the road. So Council Member Ekstrom, do you have a question?
I do. I mean, I want it all, right? I want to have our police department have the best of everything, right? But I can see that there are certain things that economies of scale make it so that we can't have, you know, all of the resources that the sheriff's department does. So what I would love is for it to have like all of the North Ogden Police Department, you know, have your facility and have the things that go there. But are there things that we could contract with the county that would make it so that it was just like, oh yeah, I have everything I need to do my job? And I guess it's more a question for Chief Quinney and Sheriff Arvin.
First, I want to make it clear, I've worked in almost every capacity with the sheriff's office and a number of these folks right here. And I have nothing but respect for what they do. And they are committed to the same oath that we took, and I know they do that with dedication. I don't question what they do with that at all. And they work under a different system. That's all I can say is they are not a municipal police department. They have a different system. As far as your question about resources, we have that. In Wells. You as a Weber County resident, CSI is your CSI. Search and rescue is your search and rescue. The sheriff asked me in a meeting a week or two ago, in your career as a small town police officer, have you ever stood up in a scene and said to yourself, I wish I had more resources? My answer is never. Every resource that was just given to us in this presentation is available. But we pick up the phone and I know the sheriff knows. Oh, if he calls me and he needs something, we're going to do everything we can get can do to get it. So every other agency in this county has the same attitude. We police without orders. I say that not because we just wander around the county. These guys do. Which I kind of have these once in a while. I wouldn't mind go Monte Cristo. Anyway, we have those resources. Trust me.
Chief, while you're there, I just jotted this down. You know, we've had discussions that you've indicated the need for additional officers to keep our level of service up to what the residents expect. I've always said we have one officer for about every 1,000 people, approximately. Being an accountant, I do have the right to round. If I read this right, the sheriff's office is proposing 0.71 officers per citizen. What are your feelings about that?
I'll give you an example. Last week, there was a moment or a day where we had 3 domestic issues simultaneously in this city, separate from each other. These are priority 1 and 2 calls. 3 deputies aren't going to be able to handle it. So they're going to have to pull resources from somewhere else. It's either a neighboring city, which if that happens frequently, is it not going to make it popular, or it's going to be a deputy from another area that they're assigned, whether it's Upper Valley, Plain City, or West, or wherever it is. These 3 deputies aren't going to handle these 3 situations simultaneously, or they're going to sit. They're going to sit in the queue for 20, 30, 45, 2 hours, whatever it takes to get to that. And that's nothing to say about what they do, because they're doing what they can with the resources they have and the system they're working with. So when this happened with us, I've got 4 first frontline officers on duty at the same time. That's what they're trying to mimic there with that. But what they don't have is Lieutenant Crowther, Lieutenant Hines, myself. We're out there on those same 3 scenes, so we can handle them without delay. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, while you're up there, let's see if the council has any other questions for you with the sheriff or council. Councilman Swanson, please.
In your presentation, you talked about the 144,000 per officer. Did that include the cost of the building that you're building right now? I don't believe it does, correct? Because that's handled through the county at large, and the same with your overall building that your officers use. That is not in your budget, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that I just wanted to make sure about that. That was the only question that I had. And Chief, I don't believe that Chief Quinn, I don't believe your desire to go to the top of Monte and patrol has anything to do with patrolling. I think it has a lot to do with antlers.
You know me. The sheriff just said that some of the things that I just said wasn't true. And I just want it to be known that that is from my personal and professional. That's my personal and professional opinion from my own observations.
Thank you. Councilmember Stoker, did you have a question? You said you were going to answer for the chief.
Well, not a question, but some things that I I've been working with the chief and going over the budget and some things that I do know. And this is again, my own personal input. First of all, I think the sheriffs are great. My husband is part of search and rescue and they go out on calls all the time, and even Ogden City responds to calls. Their fire department goes up, so there's a lot of people that are up and out there. And so we do have a lot of the same resources that are out there, and we already have medical in our city. I'm sure that our officers are trained in CPR and probably have, you know, what you need to tell personnel can get there to help. And always what looks good on paper, we all have to remember costs go up. They never stay the same. And another thing that would happen if we went with the sheriff's department, the mayor and the city council wouldn't have as much say as they do now. That would be taken away. Part of that would be taken away from us. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Councilman Barker, please.
I think I have a unique perspective working public safety. Like Sergeant Slater said, we started in dispatch, and he's actually the reason I went to the fire department side. He pushed me away from the police. But I actually, if we contract with the sheriff's department, we won't lose any service, in my opinion. I don't consider myself an administrator over at the fire district, even though I hold the rank over there. Firefighters are like police officers when there's an emergency, they respond from it wherever they can. Everyone's gonna be backing each other up, no matter how big or small. So I don't think we'll lose any service. I think what we do lose is the feel, the community feel. It's how many of our citizens know who Sergeant Childs is? Good or bad, everybody knows Sergeant Childs because he's a school resource officer at the junior high. My kid loves him. My wife loves him because she got a warning from Sergeant Child and they get a ticket. I mean, she's a legend. It's the same with Officer Morale. All the kids know him. It's because our officers, they drive around, they know him. I mean, everyone knows Lieutenant Crowther too. It's a feel of a local police department. We like to see North Ogden PD when we're driving around. I have utmost respect for the sheriffs and I know we do great, but ultimately, this is the part that sucks as being an administrator. It comes down to money. What do you want to pay for? And I personally want to keep paying for our police department. I think the sheriff would do just as good, if not better. I don't know if better, but just as good as what we're doing now. We won't lose any service by going to the sheriff's. We have the same service, but I think there's a lot to be said with the feel that our local police department has, the buy-in that they have, and I think we've gone a long way to get them here, and I want to keep them here.
Councilman Severin.
Sheriff, I'd like to ask a question of you, and you're welcome to respond or any one of the staff members. I think the sheriff's department could do a great job for us. I felt like your presentation was more. It was a good presentation, but there's always another side. And since we all believe in transparency here, I want to know, you gave us all the pros. I want you to tell us, if you will, the cons.
From my perspective,
Are there any cons for North Ogden City if we were to move in with the sheriff's department? Just good, honest cons.
I have no issue with this. When I told you up front that I had the fortunate history to work with cities and be an elected sheriff. There's a couple of key factors in talking with other mayors that have agencies. It comes down to basically 2 or 3 things and the reason why they feel that they should have their own police department. It is exactly what Councilmember Barker said. It's the feel, it's the control, and the knowledge of who the officers are. That's what I see. I could tell you that I think that there is a control factor But also in my experience, most citizens just want to be able to call 911 and someone comes. Usually you hear the field comment coming from people who are really invested in their community as far as an elected official level or some other point. But most people that I talk to, they just want someone to call or have respond if there's help, if the help is needed. So that's how I see it. The advantages or stuff that we shared with you, there's just so many resources. And contrary to what the chief said, he says he's got Crowther and some other guys on. Well, at our office, we have 30 to 40 people that are on that can come in an instant. That's why we were showing that slide up there is those, we were asked, what would the boots be on the ground just taking calls? If there was a serious matter, we got a lot of resources that can come from anywhere. And what a lot of people may not understand as well is dispatch controls those resources. If there is an incident and these three guys are busy, well, here comes Pleasant View, here comes Harrisville. They always take the closest, whoever's closest, then it'll be Ogden. And then if there's anybody else, could be someone from the Upper Valley, Plain City, Far West, wherever we're at. I mean, there's a lot of resources available. And it's just, it all starts with dispatch.
So your only cons would be, yes, we might lose a feel, we might lose control. There may not be that personal relationship. Can I ask one more question?
Keep going, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to know, in the last couple of years, we've seen, and I know this is, it's not necessarily apples and oranges, but it is a different city and, a different county, but everybody was so excited about this unified police ID in Salt Lake City. And now all of a sudden, probably what, in the last few years, we've seen 3 or 4 cities who are saying, you know what, now we want our own personal. Why is that? And why should we not learn from their experience?
3 months ago, every once in a while we get calls on what would it cost to, how would it look for the sheriff's office to take over. I get calls from the cities up in Fox Elder County where I was chief of a small town, when they have a couple of cities that they may want to contract with the sheriff, and they say, hey, we know what you do in the county. You know, what are the advantages and disadvantages? What I will tell you is that my experience talking with some of the board members with Unified, that their cost process is different than ours. The way they run their operation is different. They have a board, they have controlling groups. This is a contract with the sheriff. So the governing is totally different. In each of those cases that have left, I would say probably at least 50% or more. It's interesting that the captain that was over the precinct ended up being their chief. And so you kind of creates a little speculation, and I'm not accusing any of being nefarious, but you see someone gravitating. And in each one of those cities, if you look at their budgets, what they were paying with the Unified, at the time that they were with Unified, and then the years after, and you'll see an average of 35% increase within a year or two.
So you're simply saying it came down simply just
a lot of it came down to costs. And then there's the group that says, we want our own, we want more control. And even the discussions that I've had with other lieutenants with these agencies, it always starts out, well, there's $20 million that we pay or whatever that number is to these cities. Why can't we do that ourselves? That's a lot of money. As you can see in costs, I think council member actually was, costs are always going up. Costs are never fixed. And a lot of times the cost of law enforcement, council member Stoker, sorry. But you see a lot of these costs that affect law enforcement, or a lot of it has to do with our legislators. There was a lady that made a comment that she had some want to know if we're going to do training. Well, there's a bill that went through legislature that's mandated 16 hours of our training with post to cover these certain criteria. Just our office alone, with the 400 or so or 380 so employees, that's a $95,000 increase that we have to make sure we have a budget for. And so when you talk cost, so a lot of it does come down to cost. But I agree with Ryan. A lot of it, the service is there, but people like that feeling. And so in our presentation, we would have a precinct chief. It would help. We, you know, if that happened, we would love to have Chief Quinny come over and fill that void. There's still that connection with the public. We mentioned in there that the officers, we would love to have them assigned to this area. But as life goes on, people move, they promote, and then they let people come in. And they're gonna get to know the neighbors, just like our deputies get to know our citizens, the contract cities that we have.
Thanks, Sheriff. Just one last question. I didn't, maybe I missed this, but did you put up there the number before public safety building?
Yeah.
And how much
It
was
a
that?
number without public safety and with. based
Without
on
the
numbers
building.
We were given, it was a 700,000. You chose not to,
I'm talking about per FTE.
so which?
We showed $165,000.
That was with the building.
Yeah, what was it without the building?
I don't remember.
Because I think Councilman Swanson, ours is 135, yours is 144.
135.
Yours is 144, so basically the savings is a reduction in personnel primarily.
Last year, our costs, I believe, were 132 per officer. So
What was the one on the
I think
screen?
year for year, it was about the same.
It's 141.
141.
Yes.
And ours is what? 135. So the savings would be a reduction in the number of people that the sheriff's office feels we need versus what our chief says we need. Because the only number I saw up there from North Ogden was 165,000, which included the building. But I think Councilman Swanson asked a very good question. There's no cost of your buildings in the comparative number. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's under the corrections budget, the general fund budget, our buildings.
So it's a really not comparative number then, because you have no buildings in yours.
Yeah.
No cost of buildings
But
in
it's
your
not
FTE.
gonna, it's not gonna cost you, we're not gonna come and say, well, now you gotta pay for our building. That's the 141,000 for an FTE is what the actual cost is. That's what. it
Yeah,
is
let's
for
put
you.
that on the officer on the street.
Yeah. So when you look at, when you look at the 141,000, that's, our building's 20 years old, it's paid for, right? We have a maintenance budget to keep up with it. But we're not taking, we're not, if you contracted with us, that's what the contract rate would be. It's the 141 and then anticipated to 141.
So all new buildings you would build is paid for by the general fund. You would not assign any of that to a contract city. Is that correct?
No, the cost is into the FTE cost. Which is
Additional buildings, because you're telling me now that you don't have a building cost because your building's 20 years old. But if you build a new building, because they don't last forever, or you add a new building to put trailers in.
Yeah, but that's like the 1.7 million.
So you'll never,
it comes out of the budget.
so you'll never allocate any building costs to contracted cities, is that correct?
I don't think it's appropriate to say never, but no, it doesn't roll into that.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Swanson?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring up the issue about the buildings again. I think what's most important here, from my perspective, is this isn't a competition, right? It's not. It's not about who's got a better department or who's got better services or who's got any of that. Every officer here, everyone on that chart is willing to take a bullet for me. That's what it comes down to. And it doesn't matter if it's Pleasant View, Harrisville, Weber County, North Ogden, it doesn't matter. It's that brotherhood that you were talking about. And that exists in reality. So for me as a council member, what I have to ask myself is, what we have already is awesome. It is just simply awesome. The sheriff's department, you're awesome. Search and rescue, you know how I feel about you guys, right? You're all awesome. The question I have to ask myself is there enough of a difference to make a change where what we have is already working? And in my mind, there isn't. It's not about there would be less service. I don't think there would be. There are the intangibles that Councilman Barker brought up. And there are many of those that for me say there's no reason to change what we're doing. Is it more expensive? It is. Absolutely it is. And sometimes we have to make those decisions in life that we end up spending a little bit more to maintain what we have. And what we have is really good, and it's worked for a very long time, for decades, and served this community exceptionally well. And so I'm with Councilman Barker. I don't see that we need to make a change. Sheriff, you know how I feel about you personally. We're close friends. You know how I feel about the department. You know how I feel about every one of your deputies. Words can't describe the feelings that I have for the first responders in both major areas. There just, in my mind, there isn't sufficient reason to change what we're doing now. So my feeling would be that we stay with the department that we have.
Any other comments?
I'll just say one more thing.
Councilman Severin, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, you know what? You don't get fifth in the state by accident. And knowing Chief Quinney and some of the policemen like I did, they won't stop at the fifth. And we can do that on our own.
Any other comments?
I do, to me, it's,
Councilmember Exton?
yeah, it's just the difference between, going to a place where, you can get an appliance at Home Depot, or you can go to Boyle's and the family, and the people. And to me, I want to go where it's the high touch service. And to me, it's part of our city identity to have our own police department. And I'm willing to spend a nickel to get it. It's like there's a certain quality and a certain feel that goes with it that is important for just the way that that North Ogden as a community, we have our own police. And and I love Sheriff Arbin, and I think it's great, and he's got a great product, and I think we would get great service. For me, I like the personal, the high touch interaction.
Okay, thank you. This is a really important decision, maybe one of the most important decisions we make. I think our officers have heard from our council where their feelings are tonight. John, I'd like to give the council a week to think about this. Can we call a special meeting to address this issue and only this issue?
Yeah.
I think it's important enough that we digest this. And Chief, I think you've heard where your council members stand right now. I believe this is important enough decision that we digest this and we take 1 week and we address this issue and make a decision at a special council meeting next week. Do you have any problems with that, or will your officers have any problems with that?
No, I think that's acceptable.
Okay. I can't emphasize enough to the council how important this is, because I do not want our officers with this uncertainty. It's very important to them and their livelihoods. And it's very important to this decision, the city, whatever the decision is. I think I know where the council's leaning. But I wanted to take some time and digest this. I think the sheriff's presentation had a lot of information in that needs to be digested. We need to have an opportunity to talk to our chief, who we trust without question. I think there's a difference in the coverage that's needed. But I also believe that there's nobody better to know than Chief Quinney. So I want to have some conversations with him. So with that, we'll move on to the next item. Is that okay, Councilman Swanson?
I just have, I guess it's a general question. John, as our city attorney, in the footnotes to our agenda, the second sentence.
Yeah.
Would that apply to this meeting, to this subject?
Final action?
Yes.
Yes.
Where are you, Councilman Swanson?
I'm at the very bottom. If you look at the footnotes of our agenda, one of the discretionary items that we have as a council in any meeting is one that you can see that we can rearrange the order of any items. And we've done that once this evening. We also, at our discretion, can take final action on any item on the agenda, and that includes items that are not necessarily presentation and or action, right? So that we could, my question then would be to council, I am not opposed to taking final action tonight. Any other council members, Mayor, if you'd like to poll the council and ask them their feelings on taking final action tonight?
They run the show. Let me ask, Councilmember Stoker, would you like to finalize this tonight?
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom, Councilmember Severin,
Yes.
Councilmember Barker. We don't need
Mayor,
your
with
vote.
that in mind, then I would move that we, that as a council, what's the wording, John? I'm at a loss for words. Shock.
So the action taken by, there's two ways. You could just say that the council reaffirmed the action taken last meeting, which is proceed forward with the financing of the new facility.
Okay.
Or
I'll
another
do
motion.
it that way.
That would be good.
Mayor, I'll move that the council reaffirm the decision that we made in our last meeting to move forward with the bond to keep our department and to build the public safety building.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second that.
Have a second by Councilmember Severin. Is there any further discussion? We'll take a roll call vote on this. I think it's important enough to know. Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Severin,
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom,
Yes.
Councilmember Stoker,
Yes.
Councilmember Swanson.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on to our next.
And again, Sheriff's Department, this is not a reflection on your quality in any way, shape, or form.
We're good with it. We're the best. You guys asked.
I just want you to be,
We're good.
I want you to know.
Thanks for the work put in. Yeah, I can tell there's a lot of work. Thanks, Sheriff, to you and your staff.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on now to item number 6, which is really item number 5. Alan Barker is going to make a presentation on Parks and Recreation and budget improvements. So we'll proceed to that issue.
Okay. Council.
Guess we'll turn the lights off again.
Well, I suck at public speaking, so let's hope this goes as well as I think it will.
Is one okay?
So the reason I even started looking at a budget is because right now I work in the field of architecture. I am a project designer for an architecture firm, and I deal with construction budgets all the time. So when I initially saw the budget for the public safety building, I had a couple concerns and called up the mayor and went, hey, here's my concerns. He had an answer for everything I had. So I went, okay, great. I'm glad you're doing your homework. So I will look at other avenues. And so looked at the general budget and saw that parks is one of the bigger expenses to the city. So I went, okay, I really want to see the quality of what's going on. Why are we spending as much as we are? Is it worth it? So I broke down the budget, looked at it, and then grabbed my 5-year-old daughter and went to every single North Ogden park to see what North Ogden had to offer. And we stopped at Mountain View. We stopped at all of them. And my daughter went, this is broken, this is broken, this is broken, given she's 5. So I'm going, if a 5-year-old is calling out something is broken, something's not happening. So I obviously took pictures of the parks. That was Mountain View Park. You can see a crack in the slide, the drinking fountain's kind of falling off the wall. You can we can just go through all the pictures real quick. McGriff Park, the bathrooms are in terrible shape. We literally have soffit falling off the building, siding falling off the building. There's holes rotted through the barbecue grills to where if we did use them, the fire department would probably be getting called because the grass is lighting on fire and it needs to be put out. McGriff, you've got cracks in the rubber tiles that are up to 3 inches wide, which, I mean, if you've got toddlers or a child running around, their foot could easily slide in, snap an ankle. Barker Park. So, I mean, the playground picture is a little misleading. I mean, I went back later and inspected a little bit, and it's actually rubber that's cracked and splitting, and it's not too sharp. But the rest of the park, you've got trails that are in disarray. You've got tree branches hanging from trees that this windstorm probably knocked half of them out of the trees. And then you've got drops that are 10 to 12 feet drops. And I mean, I know building code, if I have anything on a site that is 30 inches or more, I have to have a guardrail in place to prevent somebody falling off. We don't have those anywhere. Lowman View Park, I mean, we just got a brand new playground, brand new bathrooms, look great, but again, we have barbecue grills that if we used them, fire is not going to be contained. So I went, okay, I'm not too happy with the state of our parks. I feel like I think the budget's $1.1 million roughly, I can't remember. But I'm going, my money I feel like is not being well spent. So then I took my whole family up to Brigham City and looked at all of their parks. And it is night and day difference, the feel of the parks. Everything feels maintained. Nothing is, I mean, when we walked through North Ogden Park, I didn't go through with a fine tooth comb. And with Brigham City, I didn't walk through with a fine tooth comb either. With Brigham City, I didn't find anything that's visible to the eye that's kind of, well, what's going on here? I take it back. There was one park they had, and it's the park with the skate park. I can't remember the name of the park, but they had their big slide barricaded off because something is broken on the slide. So they barricaded off so no injuries can occur to show that it is closed. So then when I saw that, I went, well, how much is Brigham City spending on their parks? And then on the budget, I kind of broke down the budget so it's easier for me to see because I am not a numbers guy at all. But, and my parents would attest, I hated math growing up. But when I compared them side to side, if we can go up, I think 2 slides. Maybe, nope, that's the one. So as you can see, our wages compared to Brigham City are quite higher by a lot. I think it's like a $300,000 number more in salaries. And then as we get farther down on there, we've got department supplies and maintenance items where we're spending significantly less on those items than Brigham City. And so I went, well, maybe that's why our parks don't feel as nice as Brigham City. So after I did that, I did a little research and went, okay, how can we prolong the life of a playground? Because I don't know this stuff. And I found a company back in North Carolina that had a presentation that said, okay, these are the weekly inspections that should be happening. These are the monthly inspections you should be doing. And then these are kind of the quarterly or annual inspections you should be doing for a park. So I went, okay, I want to know what North Ogden City is inspecting, how often we're doing this. Are we doing inspections? And so I sent the grammar request in and and while I was waiting for that, I talked to Blake or Councilman Severing, and he suggested that maybe I don't just look at North Ogden and Brigham City, because maybe Brigham City is an anomaly. And so I looked at Clinton and I looked at West Haven as well. And so when we can scroll down, oh, we can hit this one. And then, so I compared capital projects as well and saw that we significantly outspent Brigham City over the past 5 years in capital projects for park improvements. And again, I went, how are we spending so much more and feeling like we're getting so much less? So, and then obviously Clinton, North Ogden side by side, you kind of see the same thing. You see our salary, oh, this is park comparison, square foot cost. And that slide is actually a little incorrect. I forgot to put Bicentennial Park with the square footage, and it decreases our cost per square foot by 3 cents. So sorry about that. But here you see Clinton City versus North Ogden. And again, you see similar comparison. You see us outspending Clinton on salaries, roughly 300,000, and underspending on supplies and maintenance by roughly another 100,000, 150,000. Compared West Haven, West Haven's budget is really, really simple. Straight to the point, it's like 4 line items. And so it wasn't as great of a comparison as I would have liked to have achieved. But again, you see the same thing. You see salaries, maintenance. And so throughout this process, I met with Evan to go over numbers just to see if I was misreading something. And he had a couple comments that salaries, we might have different personnel assigned to Parks Department that other cities might. So I know it's not exactly apples to apples, but I feel like it might be apples to oranges, as I think Councilman Severin said earlier, that cities are different. When I did the grammar request, initially I got 0 inspection reports from North Ogden, which was very, very concerning to me, because I went, well, that would explain why. But last Thursday, I got reports because there was some miscommunication, and I ended up getting, I think it was either 8 or 9 inspection reports from North Ogden, and then 3 kind of status quo of the parks on how frequently they should be inspected. But that was all of the inspections that I got. And Brigham City gave me 315 reports from last year. One thing that was concerning on the inspection reports that I did get from North Ogden is back in March last year, they did inspect Mountain View Park, and on there it shows that the slide is cracked. But obviously a year later, nothing has been done. I don't know if there's a plan of action. I did ask for a maintenance plan for the parks, and what I got from North Ogden was kind of every 3 years, we're planning on replacing the playground in each of the parks. Brigham City, when I talked to them, he said, if something's called out on the inspection, they address it within a week or 2. If it's a bigger item, like a slide that has a crack in it, he said they'll partition it off, kind of like what's at the skate park right now. And he said that they'll either reorder the part or they'll table the item for the next fiscal year if they're running low on funds. And he said to replace a slide or a slide part is a 6-week lead time. So if something needed to be replaced on the playground, they'd close down that portion of the park for 6 weeks, and then they would replace it. I was pretty happy to see that North Ogden gave me a pretty detailed parts budget, a lot more detailed than what Brigham City gave me. And so I was able to kind of track the costs and see where different items lie. And I mean, if you looked at the packet, I'm hoping you did, you saw that Brigham City just gave me their overall budget, what we show on our website, and North Ogden gave us ours. And so if we go back to slide 1, I kind of breeze through that one. Slide like 25, I think. It kind of has the questions that I kind of worked with the mayor and John on, just to try and figure out a direction for the park. And I mean, what are the city standards for parks? What, like, do we allow a playground to get a crack in the slide and not address it? Or is it something that mean, I'm not a playground person, so I don't know what would need to be replaced, if there's a repair item, what that is. How can the city maximize the results for the investment in salaries and maintenance? Why do we, sorry, can you make it up just a tad bigger, or do I just need to walk forward? Just walk forward. Why do we have, oh, no inspection report? We did, but I feel like they're probably not as frequent as what they should be based off of what I saw in Brigham City. What planning is being done to keep up with the growth of the city? When I talked with the mayor and John, they mentioned that the park impact fees are $3 million in the hole right now. And those would typically go to build new parks. And so I know Marriott has a development plan that he's planning for up on the bench, but so I would think if they would require a park, what is the city doing to increase safety at parks? How can the city better utilize the Parks and Trails Committee? Can the committee help with planning of timeline? What type of things can be added to existing parks to make them appeal more to the public? And on that item, what Brigham City sent me as far as like their maintenance plan, they gave me a schedule of each fiscal year, kind of what items they're planning that they're needing to address with. So they had the item, a dollar amount, and then the year that they're tentatively planning to address that item. And like I said, what I got was we're replacing the playground at each park every 3 years. Well, 3-year rolling timeline. And then have we looked at outsourcing lawn care for our parks? If our salaries really are that high, is outsourcing, does that save us some money? Kind of what we looked at with the police and sheriffs right now. I mean, obviously, I'm very happy with our police department. Otherwise, I wouldn't be looking at the public safety building and trying to find extra funds that could go to help fund a new police station. And give them good gym equipment so Chief Quinny doesn't have to just try and find it. So that's kind of, that was kind of my whole kind of analysis, kind of approach. I mean, I'm used to comparing construction budgets, like I said, so I mean, it's probably not the same comparing financial budget, because there are differences just like there are in construction budgets. But the concerns were pretty concerning to me when I saw $300,000 difference in salaries in our parks. I mean, when I was up in Brigham City going to the parks, the thoughts that were in my head were, why did I buy a house in North Ogden? Why do I, if I want to take my kids to a park, I'd rather drive to Brigham City to go to a park than stay in North Ogden. And I feel like that's not the mentality we would want at the city. So I don't know if I need to open it up for questions because I don't have a lot of answers, but.
Here's what we'll do. Councilmember Ekstrom is assigned to the Parks and Recreation.
Yep.
Charlotte, if you would take these questions and answer them for us by working with Mrs. Staley. And I think some of this will involve probably input from John and even the council long-term. But I think we do, have a responsibility to address these questions and answer them. So if you would take that assignment on, and let's try to get this done in the next 30 days if we could.
I've actually already met with her. I'm surprised Alan didn't, because a lot of these questions could have been answered with the conversation with Tiffany, probably with.
Well, let's get official answers to them, and I think it's probably time to maybe relook at the strategy for our parks. The one I saw, at least in the presentation, was somewhat dated, so we probably do need as a council to relook at that. But
yeah, one other thing, I mean, with the barbecue grills, I mean, on the inspection reports I did get, I noticed they don't even, there's no line item for the barbecue grills. So it wouldn't surprise me if we haven't been inspecting the grills. And I know in Brigham City, they've got a line item, barbecue grills, yep, they're good, or they need to be cleared out. And so,
Yeah, I think we can always do better. I think, you know, and that's the goal for all of us, I think, is continuous improvement. I think we've arrived, that's when we fall behind, so we appreciate your report, and I know you put a lot of work into it, and thank you for that. And our commitment is that we'll get official answers to these, and if there's things we need to improve on, we will. I think that's our attitude, so.
okay.
Thank you,
Well,
Dallin.
thank you for your time, council.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Dallin.
Speaking of Tiffany, is she joining us by Zoom tonight?
She is. Let me move her over.
She's going to ask for some decisions. She has some additional information on Cherry Days, so as soon as Tiffany joins us, we'll have her address this item.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council.
Lieutenant Crowther.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, but we can't see you.
I don't know how to fix that. I have an unmute button, but I don't have a video button.
Yeah, it won't show up as your camera just because you're a panelist. So go ahead and just see your screen.
Awesome. So with the recent lifting of the mask mandate by Governor Cox, and with the planning of Cherry Days, we were waiting for that to happen to see what restrictions would change, if any, as far as the guidelines given and the requirements for large events or for events hosted by the city considered public gatherings. With that mask mandate being lifted, the change we were hoping for did not happen, and that's the change within the structure for risk and transmission levels. So under the transmission levels for the state of Utah, under high, medium, and low risk public gatherings, there are a couple of requirements that must be met for events. One is that masks are required at all levels of transmission for events, and that we need to provide with confidence to the Weber Morgan Health Department that we can ensure compliance with that. Number two is that contact tracing is required at events for each household. This most likely requires fencing, as we've done last year at events at the amphitheater, and name and phone numbers for each household who is in attendance. With these changes not being made in these restrictions, it provides a little bit of difficulty for our Cherry Days events. Having a parade, it's not feasible for us to require masks for all the individuals along the parade route, or to get contact tracing information, as well as up at the festival. We would be able to fence the facility and get contact information with additional staffing, but being able to require masks of everyone that would be in attendance is prohibitive. So with that, the Parks and Recreation Department is recommending that the City Council cancel again events associated with Cherry Days, with the exception of the medallion search, which we can do without a gathering the week before Cherry Days. The race, the 5K Family Fun Run, which we can do with the same restrictions that we do for sporting events. The registration we take for the race provides us with contact tracing information, and we can ask that masks be worn by any spectators who would be there. And the third thing that we would recommend to the council still holding, it would be fireworks, but without the evening entertainment. They could be shot off from an undisclosed location in the city, where they would be able to be seen from residents in their homes or outside their homes, in their yards, throughout the entire city. So what we're looking for from you is a final decision on the events associated with Cherry Days for this year and July 3rd, so that we can move forward with planning. There is a possibility that The restrictions on July 4th will be different than the restrictions today. However, we are at a point where we are out of time for a lot of these events. They can't be planned, in a week or even in 2 weeks. And distribution and communication with our residents traditionally happens in the Cherry Days magazine insert that goes out with the Connection magazine the first part of June. The deadline for that is the first part of May. And so with where we sit with those deadlines and with the current restrictions, that would be our recommendation, but we're looking for your final decision tonight.
Okay. Any comments? I did have a chance to speak with the county commissioners today. Not that it makes a whole bunch of difference, but he indicated most cities are proceeding along with their activities, but I do think Tiffany has some good points here. I always believe if we're gonna do something, we gotta try to do it right. And if we can't do it right, maybe we shouldn't do it. So, Councilmember Stover, what are your thoughts?
I'm okay with Tiffany's recommendations and cancel the parade and the Cherry Days activities, except for what has been mentioned.
Okay. Councilman Swanson?
Yeah, my only concern would be, other than where we traditionally launch the fireworks, fire marshal, are there other locations that might meet the,
Probably.
probably, okay. I'm not asking you to disclose though.
Yeah.
We'll talk about our private little fireworks thing later.
Yeah, there's other options. With the firework, last year Pleasant View did something similar for their Founder's Day, and they just launched fireworks from Weber High. They didn't let anyone in the stadium or around the Weber High grounds, and they broadcast the music out over the radio. So it worked well, and they're doing the same thing this year.
Well, with our wonderful fire marshal and his expertise, then I would agree with Councilwoman Stover that I agree with Tiffany.
So is Councilman Barker going to say that he agrees with Councilmember Stoker based upon your agreements with Councilmember Stoker? So he's going to agree with you. Is this a change?
And then whoever's last, good luck.
Okay. Councilmember Ekstrom,
I agree with Tiffany.
Councilmember Severing,
I agree with Tiffany.
Councilmember Barker.
Yes, and for the record, the fire department had a plan in place not to throw from our vehicles this year.
You did.
Then now we don't get to do it.
Is it in writing? Okay, I got my answer.
The chief.
Got I got my answer.
Had a good plan. It was.
I got my answer. All right, then we need a motion to accept Tiffany's recommendation.
Mayor, I move that we accept Tiffany's recommendation to cancel the Cherry Days events with the exception of the medallion search, the 5K fun run, and fireworks.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Councilmember Stoker. Any further discussion? All those in favor of accepting the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, we will now hear from Chief Quinney, who him and our Director of Public Works, Dave Espinosa, are going to report back to us on the work that was asked to be done by one of our citizens regarding Fruitland Drive and 2100 North. Chief, you gonna start?
Is this an age test being this far away from that screen? Or?
I couldn't see it either, so you're good.
Real quick on the matter of a previous agenda item from the police department, we love you to. And you.
Warning next time. You want my laptop?
Actually, I've got a
Oh, you got a copy? Okay.
copy of, I think, all of them I'm gonna need, so.
All right.
So this is, the intersection 2100 North Fruitland, it was a topic that Citizen brought that a report on a few council meetings ago. And at the end of that, I think we went through most of the survey results. However, we did not have a speed survey. So We now have some speed survey numbers. But we'll briefly kind of summarize the rest of the survey. I think the request was to look at the four-way stop and or maybe a roundabout. And the manual for traffic control devices kind of gives you some criteria that it suggests that you meet as guidelines to do one of these traffic regulations. And one of them is the number of accidents. It says as one of the guidelines that 5 accidents in a 12-month period. One guideline to meet, one criteria. And over the last 4 years, we've actually had 4 accidents that we can contribute to this intersection. We've had some in the area. They will not, you can't contribute the cause to the intersection itself. So the intersection itself over 4 years, 4 accidents, which is doesn't quite meet that. And then another guideline is vehicle count. And so you have what they would consider the major. Anyway, the major and the minor. So the direction that like north and south traffic would be the major on this one. East and west is minor. For the major, 300 cars per hour, every hour for an 8-hour period. We didn't come close to that. The minor is 200 every hour. The same 8-hour period. And, we didn't even come close to that. So, and then as far as the speed survey goes, we put our trailer out there for southbound traffic. We put it on the south side of the intersection, so we'll get cars coming out of that S curve. For the northbound traffic, we put it on the north side of the intersection to get cars coming out, because the concern was the speed the cars are taking the S curve. What we come up with is for southbound average speed. This is a 30-mile-an-hour posted. All through one drive is 30 miles an hour. The average speed being 26.37 miles an hour. 50th percentile, 27 miles an hour, and the 85th percentile, which, by the way, is what engineers in the state UDOT uses to set speed limits, is the 85th percentile. For southbound traffic at this intersection is 30 miles an hour, which right. For northbound traffic, average is 22.4 miles an hour. 50th percentile, 23 miles per hour. 85th percentile, 28 miles an hour. So based off of the manual for uniform traffic control devices and the guidelines that it sets out to justify a 4-way stop, we don't meet those. And then again, I'll tell you, these are just guidelines so that the traffic control devices across the country, wherever you go, are uniform, so you don't have to learn how to use the next jurisdiction's traffic control devices. Again, it's guidelines. The council can choose not to follow the guidelines if that's what they choose to do. I don't see that a 4-way stop. I don't know if Dave has anything to add to that.
Dave, you were going to address the tree. You were going to get with the county and see if we could make the vision a little bit better in the intersection.
Yeah, and as far as that goes, the Lauren's been in contact, tried to get in contact with the county. We haven't got any kind of response back from the county because these houses land inside the county. You know, that's who we're reaching out to take care of these trees in that area. And Lauren hasn't got any response back from people who's reached out to at the county. If it's something that you feel, you know, warrants, I mean, we can go out and cut these trees back, but that's kind of where we're at with it right now, is that, you know, we've been trying to reach them and get a response from them as far as getting those trees cut back. I know one of the shrubs they said got trimmed, but the actual tree, the one that I think is the big visual issue, it hasn't yet. So that's something that if you guys would like us to do, we can go out and do.
Well, I did drive the intersection a couple of times, and I must say that there's only been 4 accidents because of luck, not because of the design of that intersection. It's a crazy intersection. I don't see where it would hurt to continue to try to get that tree trimmed back. And if we can help with the response from the county, we're more than happy to do so. So, Chief, if I understand it, your recommendation would be no change at the intersection.
Yes.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the chief's recommendation?
I move that we accept the chief's recommendation for no 4-way stop at 2100 more.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
A second, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Chief, thank you. All right, we've already done, I think item number 8. So we'll move on to what on the agenda is actually item number 9. A discussion or action on the Hall Orchard Development Agreement and land swap proposal. And our city manager and attorney and new father, congratulations, John, will make the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. So
Can I just say one other thing today? I was talking to John on the phone and I heard this gooing. I had to ask if it was the baby or John, because he's pretty excited about his new addition.
I snuck home for lunch and was burping the baby at the time, so she sometimes can be a little noisy and burps like an adult. So sorry, so this is a request, making sure I'm on the right agenda item, Hall Orchard. If you can pull up the map, Katie, I think that might help us best. It's a little, not hard to tell on the map, but you can see this is a north-south orientation. I will try not to blind Councilman Barker, but this is the Monroe alignment that the county provided us some WACOG right-of-way acquisition funds to purchase. We acquired it back in 2017-18 from this individual landowner, and we also, as part of that, acquired this little I guess you'd call it a stovepipe or an L-shaped type parcel over here on the southwest corner of the property. That was intended to be the location of the detention basin for Monroe Boulevard. The idea being that the stormwater would be piped over to this basin, and then the outfall would go down 650 or 750 east, where we currently have storm facilities. As the landowner has looked at developing this property, they found that with us owning this property and them owning this property here, where the new detention basin is proposed, it did hamper their ability to create the number of lots you see here. They would have been fairly narrow and deep lots, particularly in this area right here, where they would be backing to the existing 8 neighbors, and then also to the city's detention parcel. With that request, they came back with a new design for this location to include moving the detention basin and swapping the city for this property. And then they would go through the normal subdivision development process and develop under the R18 zone, which is the current zone. This property is where the majority lots would be about 8,000 square feet. And some of them, the corner lots would all be 9,000 square feet. These homes directly south are the R18 zone as well. And I believe the homes just north are R18 as well. So it's a fairly consistent zone. But with that request, obviously it's city property. So the council has to review it, decide if you have interest in it. If you do have interest in it, then there's 2 things that would need to happen. One would be a development agreement to facilitate the exchange, as well as any of the other bargain for exchanges that we'll talk about in a minute. But also we would do a public hearing, because this would be the disposition of a property. Even though we'd be trading it, we would be officially disposing of property, and therefore we need to do a public hearing with all the notices and hearings that are required under state law. So this is kind of an exploratory session. The second part, or I guess the first part that I mentioned earlier, is for the council to talk about what is included in that bargain for exchange. I think it's a little small on the map, but this parcel is roughly 42,000 square feet. This parcel that is being proposed to be exchanged is closer to 40,000 feet. So there's some benefit, or there's some, disparity of the number of square feet. With these type of road projects that are wider than the standard city streets. So our standard city streets are 60 feet. I believe the Monroe right of way is 80 feet. We have a policy to try and comply with state and national takings law, where we pay for the middle asphalt for on the larger streets, so that the roads that are designed to handle more than just the local traffic are facilitated and paid for typically out of the transportation impact fee funds. There also are some improvements that need to go into this basin to make it usable for the city. And I think I can have the representative for the landowner correct me, but I think this agreement would also include a small portion of the capacity being used for this development. And it'll still pipe out to this road and go down because there's not stormwater infrastructure to the south. Trying to think what else. With that basin, there's some other things that might be included, discussion of potentially a fence around the facility depending on the depth of the water. So with our public safety standards or our public work standards, once we get over 3 feet of water depth, Dave says yes, we have to put a fence around the facility to keep it safe. So a lot of the basins you see around the city that aren't fenced, they never actually exceed that 3 feet of depth. The ones that are fenced typically do. But what we really need to know from the council is, obviously there's a discrepancy in the square footage. There's roughly, I think it was outlined on the exhibit from the landowner. There's some costs associated with the roadway of roughly $20,000. There's some detention pond construction costs of $53,000. And then there's a 10% contingency. And so the current request from the landowner, and it would be good to have Carson come up here and answer questions and provide some more information as well, is that we swap the ground and that the city put in roughly the $59,000 as well as infrastructure improvements as part of this as well. Obviously, it does put them in a little bit better position. They are able to get more lots. And I know Carson's not afraid of having that discussion about what the bargain for exchange should be, but it might be good if the council has questions for me, I'll answer them and then.
John, I do have a question.
Okay.
What is the benefit to the city of exchanging that ground?
So
we get more retention. I mean, what's the city's motivation to exchange that ground?
So from a design perspective, and we can have Laura, I haven't had Lauren confirm this with actual amounts. Is he on the call, by the way?
Yes.
So Lauren might be able to give us actual numbers, or maybe the landowner's representative can, but this property being square is likely to yield a higher capacity of stormwater than this weird shaped property because of the slopes involved. But if Lauren might have those numbers, if he raised his hand, he could probably answer that better.
And maybe Lauren could tell us how much we actually need in retention for that basin.
Yeah.
He's on.
Okay, perfect.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Okay. I'm actually at home, so I don't have all those numbers with me, but the square area for that detention basin actually provides us a little more volume because that odd L-shaped lot, we can't get as deep a basin as we actually need to. It's going to provide us quite a bit of the detention required for Monroe Boulevard, but not 100% of that detention. So we'll have some other areas that will be able to provide that also. But as far as the numbers, I could get that for you, Mayor, but that's in my files at the office. So
to answer my question, the benefit to the city is that we get more retention.
that is correct. And I think it is easily accessible, and it's designed to be maintained fairly easy.
Now, who maintains these basins? I know I received some inquiries about citizens when we first talked about this, that they want it done properly so it looks nice. I see these around the city, but that are grassed. Who takes care of those?
Those are going to be maintained by our Public Works, and
Maintained by Public Works.
those are designed and maintained according to our Public Works standards.
And just so I understand, this basin, it still won't be enough retention. We're going to need additional retention.
Well, Monroe's a long linear section, so there will be several basins along the way, and this is one of several.
Okay, thank you. We want to hear Carson from Carson Council. You want to hear?
John, it was my understanding when I met with Carson that the outfall will actually go down through the development directly to the south. And then down to the new development right there by the old packing barn. Connect there into the storm. Is that correct?
That is correct. We tried to get it out to 700 and there's just too many structures in the way.
Okay.
Any questions, or you want me to just start off?
Council, you have any questions, or what would you like us to know, Carson?
Well, I just wanted to go over some of the benefits to the city of this, and I definitely appreciate actually standing here in person in the city council, the first time in a long time. So thank you, and thank you for considering this and for allowing me to be here. One quick comment is I sure am glad you kept the North Ogden Police Department, because I mean, isn't it fun to be here, guys? Right? From when I was 12 years old and Crowder would take me home to my dad's house to make sure that I got my hiney kicked.
Well, we understand Quinny's taking you home to your dad now.
No doubt about it. That's right. I sure did appreciate seeing when I saw him tonight, so I thought that was a great move. So anyways, back to the project. As John said, you know, we really struggled over this for a minute as we were designing the project, you know, fitting the R18 zone. It just, with the lay of the city ground for the detention basin, we could not get a functional, well-designed project the way that the detention basin, the city-owned property for the basin. So we came up with the idea to make this little land swap. It is more expensive for us. We have all the frontage, a full acre worth of frontage that we don't get any upside for. We don't have any lot sales to compensate for. So we're going to improve Monroe Boulevard without any offsetting income to offset that. So that is, but it's worth it because it lays out better. It gives us more lots. So when I say there's no offsetting income, that's not necessarily the whole case, but the benefit to the city here is it lays out better. It's easier to maintain. Plus you do get over 10,000 cubic feet of capacity more in still keeping the city standard of 3 feet of depth. So in this plan that we have, we don't go over the 3 foot depth limit with the freeze board. I mean, we're good there, so it can be used as a little community park if people want to. With the, you know, getting 10,000 cubic feet of capacity excess of what you would have got in the same standard with the other property. Another thing that is a benefit to the city right now is just the sheer cost of this. We're saying, let us build it while we're at the whole thing. Let us do the basin. We'll do it while we're doing the subdivision. And in doing so, that actually saves, the average cost of a detention basin ranges between $1.50 and $2 per cubic foot of capacity. So we have 60,000 cubic feet of capacity here, and we're asking for $33,000 city participation in this. So we're asking for 55 cents a cubic foot, which is I thought that was a good partnership arrangement between us and the city. So that, in my opinion, that's a benefit to the city. And I hope the city sees that the same way. A couple other things, it's just the square is more efficient. We have less elevation change in our basin, in our proposed basin, than the city-owned property right now. We have 7.5 feet of elevation change from the northeast corner to the southwest corner. In ours, we have 4.5 feet. So we're flatter in the proposed. That makes it a little more efficient, a little cheaper to build. That works out good. I mentioned we're no deeper than our 3-foot depth, and still gaining that 50,000 cubic feet of capacity. Yeah, the only other things I have already been addressed. We would like to deed it to the city and have the city maintain it. Use.
Council, do you have any questions for Carson? Anyone? Councilman Swanson?
So you, with this layout, then you gain 4 lots, is that correct?
We gain a few more, yes. We gain. I don't remember what last one was. The other layout. If we wouldn't be using the other.
Because lot 10 would not be a buildable lot without.
What's that?
Lot 10 would not be a buildable lot.
Right.
So you're saying 5 lots?
I think 5 lots probably.
But I mean, you have 2 down on the detention basin there. So
yeah.
I think you gain 3.
Oh yeah, that's probably right.
If I can still do math, I'm just a firefighter.
I think it's actually a good place to put the basin, because I'm not sure anybody would want frontage along Monroe Boulevard.
I agree.
I don't think those would be prime lots.
I enjoyed living on it when I did at the time. I can turn my whole truck around and not have any issues.
Isn't it illegal, chief, to do a U-turn in the middle of a? We need to look
Park on the curb.
We need to look in, we need to look into
He
that.
was doing his fire truck. That's how.
I don't do it anymore because I don't live there.
Two things come out, don't they, Councilman Swanson? We
They do.
discussions, yeah.
You serve long enough, people find out.
All right,
So my question then for John, ordinarily when we build a detention basin, we pay the entire cost, correct?
If we build it, yes.
If we build it, how often are we building a detention basin?
For Monroe, I think we've got 4 along the alignment that we would pay the full cost of.
Okay.
So this would take one of those 4 and eliminate it. They're in various places as it grows.
No, it would eliminate 45 cents per cubic foot, right? Because we'd be paying the 55.
Correct.
So roughly that. And then the center 20 feet of roadway, that's that's standard, so that we're in compliance with the state and federal laws.
Correct. That's, yes, we do that for any development on these collectors and arterials.
Okay. How about we do the detention piece, Carson, and you guys eat the road piece? Well, it's just negotiating.
well,
Cheryl, I'm getting the
Wait a
daggers from
minute.
Cheryl. I would,
Wait a minute,
I would.
wait a minute, hold on here. Hold on.
on.
So our half of it is 33,000 for the basin?
Yeah.
So you want to change 19 for 33? Did I understand that right?
No,
You want him to do the road and we do the whole basin?
no, we do our portion of the basin. And they do the whole road.
Is that what you said?
We pay 33 instead of 53. That's what I said. At least that's what I meant.
Okay, well, we'll go with what you
I'm
meant.
gonna look at the person who is best at helping me understand what I said versus what I meant. Cheryl Zeiss and Steph Casey. She's very good at helping me. when I
Okay,
don't
so-
say what I mean. Both of you, and I appreciate it.
So,
So what's your best offer, Carson?
so my best offer is, right now, we're already 25% cheaper as what we're asking the city to put in for the road widening. For backfill material, we don't have anything charged because we don't know what that's gonna be.
Let me rephrase. What's your best offer, Carson?
My best offer is actually $19,513. Is that, which it should be 24,000 because this is already discounted.
What those lots gonna sell for, Carson?
Well, they might sell for 200 and they might sell for 50. So that's.
I'll take 3 at 50.
I'll take the other 6.
It's not in a hurry.
They are gonna, the market right now happens to be decent.
Yeah, it's very decent. So Carson, are you gonna grass that
The plan was to grass it, yes.
and put the sprinklers in?
Yes.
All that good stuff?
Yes.
Well, with that, I'm
That
good
was our
with
plan.
where we are then with the 53,000. Because the grass and the sprinklers will be
And that's
not
what-
inexpensive.
That's what I'm thinking is what we project, what we've thrown out here and asked for is really, it's really a good deal. I mean, it really is. If you tried to build this detention basin, I wish Warren was here because I think he could verify that this is a partnership deal right here with the numbers that we've submitted.
So let me understand the partnership is, if just back to the Councilman Swanson's here. If it's $1, we're paying 55 and you're paying 45?
No. If we take the average cost of $1.50, let's even call it cheap, $1, where did I write that down at? Who's got a calculator? John, can you?
Yep.
Carson, what you're saying is your best offer.
I'm saying this is
Let
the
me-
best offer.
Let me check with the council if they think that's an acceptable offer. We have a motion.
Mayor, I move to accept the offer.
Okay, we have a motion to accept the offer. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a second twice. Any further discussion?
Oh, yeah, I want to see Carson sweat a little more.
Mayor, I got a question.
All right, Councilman Barker, please.
Is this detention basin for the development or for Monroe?
For Monroe, but we will be utilizing it temporarily. We have another basin planned for the other side of the street.
I see that we can have 2 basins right across the street from each other.
Yes.
Okay. So, but this will only be for Monroe.
This one will be for Monroe with flow through capacity for the project.
Any other questions?
I got one last one.
All right, Councilman Barker.
Hey, David, this is a good offer. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not a real estate guy here.
Well, I was just gonna ask, I just want, Carson, we have to represent the citizens and make
I-
sure it's fair for them, but we also want to make sure that you're not being taken advantage of either. So as long as Dave and John say that this is a fair offer, then I stand with my motion to approve it.
Okay, so we need to have John put his opinion on this, if it's a fair offer. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
John?
This is my opinion, that the added capacity by going to a square piece makes up a big difference.
All right, well, let's move on. Any other questions? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
right. Good luck, Carson.
All right. Thank you much. I appreciate it.
So this will come back for those hearings and things at a future date, council.
Thanks for letting us watch you sweat a little bit.
Well, you know, jokingly set aside, I think we do have an obligation to make sure that the city's benefiting from these developments and things that are taking place. I think we're seeing now what we're faced with all the soft infrastructure that we're having to come up with, so I'm not ashamed to have you sweat a little bit, Carson, that's our job.
You had me sweating a little bit.
You were smiling the whole time.
Well, we like to ask for the moon sometimes. so
All right,
not awfully
let's-
easy.
Let's go on to item number 10, which is a discussion or action on the family promise contract extension. Let me just ask one question. Councilman Severing, are you still a board member there?
I am not.
Okay, thank you. John?
Thank you, Mayor. So council, Family Promise has been operating, I believe, since 2017. Utilizing the old fire station, which was also the old Public Works building. And what they typically do, if you remember, is they house families occasionally. Typically, it's a 1 week a month. With the pandemic, they did use it more frequently. But the council has typically allowed that to occur free of charge. Utilities and things we do cover, and it's typically fairly inexpensive. Under that, we approved an agreement with the group, the Family Promise Group, for 1 year term back in July of 2020. In that agreement, it allows the council to extend for 3 additional 1 year terms to continue moving forward. Staff doesn't have any reason not to continue moving forward. By way of information, Family Promise has indicated some interest in purchasing the building. That's not what they're asking for today. But they like the facility. It works well for them at this point. And I think staff would recommend we extend it or authorize the mayor to sign the extension starting in July 1 for another year. The current contract doesn't allow us, as written, to extend for more than 1 year at a time. So we come back every year still, but the council, if they wanted to, could probably revisit the contract in its entirety. Partially, staff has recommended leaving it in the 1 year terms just so that the council's not locked in if something changes over there, we have a need for the facility.
Thank you, John. Any further questions for John? Then we'll entertain a motion. We have a motion.
Mayor, I move that we extend the contract to Family Promise for additional 1 year.
Thank you, Councilmember Ekstrom. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Councilmember Swanson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Thank you. We'll now move on to our discussion in regards to general fund revenue projections. Our presenter will be Evan Nelson, our finance director. Evan? And we probably ought to operate under the assumption that the council has read this packet. And, have any questions? If you have any additional comments?
Thank you. I just wanted to highlight that we've modified the budget calendar a little bit. So now we're talking about general fund revenues. Our deeper dive into the budget will start on April 27th and then May 4th. It's going to be two meetings to cover the various city departments. And then the mayor suggested that we add a budget open house to the calendar, which is scheduled on May 25th in connection with the required budget public hearing. So that's an update on that. In the staff report, I gave some analysis and projections, assumptions related to the major general fund revenue sources. And I wanted to ask the council for input on those. As everyone knows, we've had strange year as far as revenues. And our assumptions have been quite low in many cases and high in others. So we would like the council to have a chance to give guidance to staff as we're preparing the general fund budget. And we want you to feel good about these numbers. And honestly, I don't want the weight of these assumptions all on my shoulders. So that's what we're asking for tonight. I won't go through page by page, I guess, but we should spend some time on sales tax for sure. That's the largest revenue source in the general fund. And it's also, it can be volatile, although when you look at the trend, it doesn't look very volatile. So let's talk about sales tax. We have assumed that fiscal year 21, the current fiscal year, will end 14% ahead of the previous year, which is a big deal. We haven't seen numbers like this before. We're assuming that fiscal year 22 will not continue such a strong trend, but it'll be more of a normal year. And so we're saying a 6% decrease compared to fiscal year 21. So you can see in the graph how it tapers downward for fiscal year 22.
And but still up from a normal year in our previous year's budget, up to what is it, about 7%?
7% compared to fiscal year 20. So you know, if you draw a line from fiscal year 20 to 22, it kind of continues the trend of the past.
Council, any concerns about that recommendation in the budget process? I think that's probably what we're seeing. We're already seeing sales tax trend down. You know, if you try to buy a new car right now, it's very difficult to find one. So probably we'll see a decrease from the prior year, but an increase from one year. So, okay, call that accepted.
Property tax, we should talk about. As you're aware, property tax revenues were basically guaranteed the same amount of revenue as the previous year plus new growth. And that calculation is factored into the certified tax rate that the county calculates for us. You can see in the trend on the graph, there's a jump from fiscal year 20 to fiscal year 21. And that's where the council voted to increase the certified rate last year. So the assumption that we have in the budget currently for fiscal year 22 is that the council would accept the certified tax rate. And we're assuming new growth to generate an additional 2% or $29,000. So as we've talked about the new public safety building, there have been discussions about whether that project would require an increase to property taxes in order to be able to make a bond payment. Our hope and our plan right now is to build the budget in a way that does not require a property tax increase. And that's been the mayor's request, and we're optimistic that we can make that happen. So that's how this graph is built. But the council will have an opportunity in the budget process to make a decision on that property tax rate. If we accept the certified rate, that'll be part of the budget approval. If there's a desire to increase beyond the certified rate, then we'll go through the truth and taxation process again. Any input on this?
Evan, it's also important that if we have a third choice as well, and that is to maintain the current rate, which would also require us to have the truth and taxation hearing. So we can accept the certified rate, which will undoubtedly be lower than what we currently have. We can keep the current rate or increase it, both of which would require the truth and taxation. So those are the three options that we'll have as we get that part of the budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's important. I had a meeting with some citizens, and some of them were under the understanding that the city was getting all this increase in property taxes based upon increased valuations. And I had to say, no, the only increase we've historically got is from growth, because the county adjusts the rate down to give us the same dollar. So we have not been benefiting from inflation in homes, appreciated value in homes. And I think that's something we need to clarify. But also in discussions, Evan, if the bond moves forward as planned, John's gonna look into it, but I think at first year, maybe interest-only payments. The facility probably would not start construction till probably March of next year, most likely. And so I don't see it anticipating, in addition to our goal to find money now that we have, seeing a significant increase in property taxes. So, but I think Councilman Swanson's point is the decision is going to be, do we maintain the current rate or do we accept the certified rate? So,
Yeah, but if you'll remember back to the presentation that I made last fall, when we had our truth and taxation hearing, some of the graphs that I showed you showed that I'm just pulling the numbers, trying to remember them exactly, but in 2009, after the fire department was pulled out, tax rate was dropped, was changed accordingly. And from in that year, in 2009, with housing values and the number of homes that we had about $900,000 in property taxes. You fast forward to 2019, so 10 years later, the amount of growth and the incredible increase in value of the homes, our property taxes was 1.2 million. So very little increase compared to the amount of growth in numbers and the incredible growth in value of the homes because of the way the certified rate is dropped every year. And that's kind of why we've been behind the 8 ball on some of the things.
Thank you. Anything else on property tax? Utility revenue tax just seems to be slowly declining over the course of time. It's a fairly significant revenue source, not as large as property tax or sales tax, but still a significant amount, of just over $1 million. That's what we're looking at there. And we don't have much control over that. We collect revenue from the utility bills that our residents pay, as well as the telephone and cell phone bills. So we're projecting that one to have a 2% decrease. Building permit revenues, we've always budgeted quite conservatively in building permits. And based on the trend we're seeing right now, fiscal year 21 is looking stronger than ever. We didn't want to budget in line with what we're seeing right now, just to be conservative, but if the council has different direction than that, happy to take it. We are basing this budget on 120 single family permits and 1 permits for fiscal year 22.
questions on that, council? That might be a touch conservative, but might be better to be conservative on that.
Court fines have gone down quite a lot because of the pandemic, but we're expecting those to rebound. So that's reflected in our estimate there.
Chief, what's your take on that?
I can tell you there's a number of cases that are in limbo that have been for quite a while. It might be a fine that was collected earlier, and it may not be collected for 6 more months because cases are still sitting in limbo because of the pandemic.
You feel comfortable with that type of rebound in fine revenue? This is recreation. It's not up there, but
I don't think we will be back to our 2019 numbers. I still think we have a little ways to go before we have this. The court is going to be probably several months behind Because some of the state mandates and things that they're going to get back to where they can actually hold over.
So your thought would be maybe that's a little aggressive.
Would be just here.
Okay, council.
I do think that talking to the court would be beneficial.
Okay, Evan, let's follow up with the court.
Talk to
That might need an adjustment then.
Yeah.
recreation revenue, you can see that this one is fairly volatile. From what it seems in the current year, though, as things have been opening up and programs have been made available, there seems to be a high demand. So we're projecting the current fiscal year to be just slightly higher than 2019. Fiscal 22 to the same pattern. That's the last one I had in the report, but I wanted to mention our Class C road revenues also. I didn't put that in the report. We were expecting a significant decline in Class C money, and we really haven't seen that materialize. So we're estimating fiscal year 22, we're estimating, so fiscal year 20 was 790,000. Fiscal year 21, we estimated at 806,000. And so we're proposing a budget in fiscal year 22 of 800,000, which is in line with fiscal year 21. So.
Any questions on that? And I do have one thing. I know the amount's not solidified yet, but we're estimating we're going to get in excess of $2 million from the most recent stimulus package for infrastructure needs, right? And we got to make sure that we try to keep on top of that, because we do have plenty of infrastructure needs, don't we, Dave? So,
We received emails about the details behind that money and the restrictions, and I think we're still waiting for more details to help us understand what the options are.
but we know we are getting money, just how to best use it.
So that's all I have as far as general fund revenues, but if the council has any direction or other questions related to the budget, I'm happy to respond.
Council, any questions? Feel comfortable with his recommendations? All right, Evan, we'll go with that. I do want to emphasize the change in our budget procedure. Make sure that's on record that each council member is initially scrubbing the budget with their assigned department head. And the next step is they meet with John and Evan to go over that once again. And then Councilman Swanson will roll those things up and make a presentation to the council based upon his assignment of having finance. And so it's a little bit different procedure, but I think it gives us assurance that we're paying close attention to the budget. One of the other things that we've talked about, I've mentioned this to Councilmember Ekstrom, we will no longer be subsidizing the aquatic center out of the general fund. That money will be coming out of the RDA funds. And the challenge has been given to Councilmember Ekstrom to work with Tiffany to find a way to start breaking that even over the next several years. So that's their assignment. That money then can be used to help with the bond payment on the facility as that's finalized. Okay. Is that fair? You okay with that, council?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Is that everything you have for us? Let's see, do we need a motion on that to accept that, John, or is that just informational?
It's just informational.
Yeah, I like information. I'm going to go on to item number 12, and thank you, Evan, for your work on that. I know it's not easy going through the audit and the budget at about the same time, so thank you. Item number 12, Councilmember Swanson, you wanted to have a discussion regarding assigning property tax revenues to the public safety expenditures.
Yes, council, as we look at the various services that we provide as a city, we have some that are critical, right? The production and supply of clean culinary water is critical to life and the support of life here in the community. The removal of sewer is critical. We certainly don't want that to stop happening, right? Fire is something, and what's unique about, not unique, what's similar about each of these critical entities is that they have their own revenue source, right? Water, we pay for our water. And the cost of obtaining that water we pay for. As the cost goes up, we each pay more for that. With sewer, through Weaver Sewer and through the city, as the cost to remove that from our homes goes up, then the utility fee associated therewith also goes up. Same with fire. As the cost to provide good fire protection goes up, our taxes to the fire district go up. Our public safety department here in the city, however, does not have a dedicated revenue stream of any sort. It's really at the whim of the council. There is nothing that says this portion of the city's revenues is dedicated to public safety. My proposal is that we, through ordinance that John would help us write, that we would dedicate all of our property taxes, 100% of our property taxes would be dedicated each year to public safety. The balance, the non-life necessity services that we provide, parks and those kinds of things, would be paid for under the more volatile sales tax. I don't think any of us want to be in a position where, because sales taxes are down, we now have to cut a couple of officers, right? Nobody wants to be in that. If it means we don't fertilize the parks as often this year like we did this last year, nobody's going to die because of that. If we mow the lawns every other week instead of every week because of a pandemic, nobody's going to die because of that. Fire, police, water, sewer, we need those to be functioning at top capacity all the time. And so that's my proposal. I'm asking for your input on what you think about that. It's similar to what the state of Utah does with property taxes, or at least it used to until this last year, where it's changed a little bit. Where everything went to the schools, to education, that we will dedicate, and with some of the new budgeting process that I'm working with the mayor and others, a certain percentage of our sales tax also would be dedicated to public safety, so that we know that from year to year, our public safety department is able to run as it should, and we don't have to look to make any cuts there. We'll make cuts in less necessary areas if we have to. So thoughts, Councilwoman Stoker? Well, that was easy.
It's time to be done.
It's past 9 o'clock. You know, you let her off for a week and she's all excited about getting out of here. We'll be pledging sales tax to the bond, though, right? If that
Correct.
proceeds.
Correct.
So all that'll be pledged to the police department, Councilmember Ekstrom. Just for your information.
Well, I definitely agree about the property tax revenues going to public safety. I mean, that just makes sense. I mean, we've got property tax, which is kind of like your salary, and then we've got sales tax, which is kind of like a bonus. You know what I mean? And that's really variable, and I don't want any variability when it comes to paying for things that are, and they're actually directly correlated, right? As you know, property ownership and needs to be directly tied to how many officers we have out, and all of the property and its value is protected by our police department. So it makes complete sense to me that the property tax revenues would go to that particular expenditure.
That sounds about 49%.
It's about 42%.
42% of the police department budget. So
for comparison, back in 2000, the police department budget was about 1.1 million. and our property taxes was about 1.1 million. So back then, property taxes would have completely paid for our public safety, and then sales taxes took care of everything else. Today, we're looking at a $2.7 million budget, and we're at $1.3 million in property taxes. So the cost to provide and the number of officers that we need because of the growth in the city is far outpaced what the property tax has to try to cover that. Not that we're gonna, it would take 100% property tax increase to fully fund the police department from property taxes. We are not doing that.
I think we should go in that direction.
And, but I think we start with dedicating the property taxes.
Any other questions from council? John, you see any problems with that?
No, so obviously as was identified, most of our budget is covered from other sources and obviously any ordinance can be changed by a future council as well, so.
Councilman Barker?
When we say property tax, is it just the property tax or the fee in lieu tax as well? Like the unsecured property, I'm not even sure if I'm saying this correctly, John, or Evan, correct me. Your trailer tax, your boat tax, that's all included in property tax.
Yeah, you're talking about like the business property that's taxed every year and things like that. Those
Personal
additional.
property.
The unsecured property, I think is what it is. Yeah.
The personal property tax?
Yes. Can we dedicate all that to it as well? That would be.
I don't think there's anything.
That would be my recommendation as well.
I like what Councilman Barker's saying.
All right.
Anything we can do to shore up and dedicate no funds coming into public safety, I think we do our public safety and more importantly, we do our citizens very well.
Okay. Any other discussion from the council? John, do we need a motion at this time or do you just need to put together an ordinance?
Yeah, I'll put
Bring it back
together
to
an ordinance.
council. Okay.
Thank you, council.
Thank you. Now on item number 13, which is also council member Swanson. We'd like to have a discussion on action of what zoning requests, if any, the council is willing to consider at this time.
Council, if you'll remember a little over a year ago, as the so many committees and things thrown around tonight. Yes, the General Plan Advisory Committee. I was about to turn to Stephanie.
Yes.
We we acted and kind of enacted a soft hold on rezoning while the committee worked. It's been over a year now, and I think the committee's pretty close to finalizing their presentation and their recommendations to the council. Thanks for your good work that you've done. I do think, though, that we need to decide as a council at this point what rezones, if any, we're willing to consider with landowners, summer coming, building season. What are your thoughts on opening it up completely to the way it was, keeping some restrictions? What do you think?
Councilmember Stover, do you have any comment on that?
I don't know that I'm comfortable with opening it up to whatever.
Well, whatever, I mean, just back to what we normally would do.
Yeah, the key is we're hoping we can vest the general plan that's presented to us. And if we're that close.
How close are we? We happen to have our co-chair here
We do
with us.
have our basic outline on how we see high density, low density, it's just a matter of getting it into the finer details. But I think based on what we've got, it gives a good idea that you guys can look at and see how we, kind of imagine higher density, medium density.
You know about how long before you'll make your presentation to council?
I have good goals every time we start to get a lot done, and sometimes we get sidetracked, but we're, I would like to do 2 months, and I'd say we're
2 months?
yeah, because we're doing a meeting a month, so if we can just finalize the last 2 months, but we're down to doing the smaller bits, you know, bringing a little bit more fine detailed.
So if we could, council, if Stephanie, if I could ask, maybe you guys be prepared to present to council on the second meeting in June.
Yes. I
Okay.
will.
And council, how do you feel about just maintaining where we are until that point? I see a nod, a nod, a nod.
We don't have any applications in right now, do we?
No.
Okay.
We have some.
We do have one. Well, we got the two, one that you heard, the R3 zone recommend or request. And there's another one from the, it's a home just below the, or home, it's property just below the cove. It's currently zoned HP3 and they're requesting HP2 that the planning commission has heard and made a recommendation on.
Okay.
So it's one of those things where even with the soft moratorium, they still have to hear and move things along. But they are actually recommending that as a rezone.
I'm not adverse, of course, it's your council's choice, but on something from 2 to 3. It's like 2 to 3, I think we surely obtained, but I'm a little bit concerned about taking R20 property and making it R3 myself. So I think there's kind of maybe a hybrid. We're willing to look at those that are minimal and change, but I would recommend we put a hold on those that are major and change.
I think we maintain where we are and doing the one at a time like we have through this period of time until the second meeting in June, when the committee will make their recommendation to us. Super.
Is that okay?
That's perfect with me,
All right,
council.
we'll stay where we're at then.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think that's it for me tonight.
Okay, well, let's move on to item number 14. Councilmember Barker, do you have anything of utmost importance to present to us this evening?
Just two little things. First, I haven't already covered most of it. Our building department is doing exceptionally well revenue wise. For this year, we had budgeted initially $302,000, which is roughly 100 building permits. We're up to $565,000 already, and we're projected to end at 730. So we're almost more than doubling what we were initially projected. So yeah, building's going a lot, which with what lumber prices cost, I don't know how. Second, we've hired our new planning director. Katie's more qualified to discuss who he is than me, but his name's Scott Hess.
And you'll be starting when, John?
May 10th.
May 10th, that interview took place. We had the chairperson of the planning commission, we had Councilman Barker, and we had John and myself. Who else was it, John?
Jamie.
And Jamie. So I think we had a good representation. We had great candidates, and the committee chose what they felt would be the best candidate to move North Ogden forward. So it'd be good to have. Rob's leaving. Rob graciously extended his retirement to help us get through next.
And Rob was involved in those as well.
Yeah, and Rob, yeah. Rob, he was a great contributor because he knew a lot of these folks and their qualifications and their ability to fit into the city. So it's good. Thank you, Councilman Barker. I think you said you were done. Is that was that a lie? Or?
Unless, John, could you bring, or excuse me, Katie, would you bring back up Evan's presentation and we can go back through that?
Oh, I was like, sure.
Cheryl,
I have nothing bad on finance.
We do have an audit committee meeting.
We do have an audit committee meeting Thursday night, and hopefully we'll have the final audit ready to present to council within a week or so.
Is that gonna be in person? You wanna do it over Zoom?
We'll probably do it in person.
Yeah, the audit committee meeting.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think we've given options.
Downstairs, I believe.
We're planning with those who want to join by Zoom. I know there's some that are still a little bit concerned, so we'll give them an option. All right. Then we have public comments. Is there anyone that would like to make public comments? Linda?
Brenda Ashdown, I am a North Ogden resident. Mr. Kyle, I hope you are prepared for a total life changed.
Yeah.
She might be cute now, but it doesn't always stay. I'm glad that we're keeping the police department in the city. I was talking to Chief Quinny before the meeting. Had a little family incident and our police officer responded very quickly. It was at the skate park, but they were very, very good to take care of that. And I think it's nice to know that they're here among us and know us. Although I'm a little concerned because he did know my name tonight, so I'm not sure that's good.
I know everything.
The questions that were brought up by Mr. Barker that are going to be answered by the Parks and Mrs. Ekstrom, will they be answered in this meeting so that we will be able to hear them, or just between the two of them?
No, I think we'll have a presentation made by council member Ekstrom.
Sure. Y'all know how I feel about the website.
Why don't you tell us? Not really. In 3 minutes.
I will tell you, this is the last time that I will talk to you about the website. I have been complaining about this for years and I'm not getting any satisfaction. And I'm very disappointed with the website. I'm very disappointed that I did not find out on the website that this meeting is in person tonight. I did not find out on the website that the city offices are now open. There's a line on the website that says latest news. The last news that was posted on there was May of 2020. There's no reason that this information cannot be on the latest news part of the website. As much of it as possible can be put on the calendar. Baseball sign up started March 1st. It was not put on the calendar till the end of March. And I know that because I have a grandson that lives with me that wants to play baseball. And the last thing that I will tell you is I sent all of you an email a week ago asking for some help with the website and why this stuff was not on there and where I can go to get this information, and not one of you replied to me. That's extremely disappointing. I have been coming to these meetings for 6 or 8 years so that I know what's going on in the city. My only other option is to go to the website and the information is not there. But that's the last. I will not bring up the website again. If you truly care about the residents and want us involved, you will do something about the website. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I was just gonna say, thank you, Brenda, for bringing that up, and I feel bad that there was not a response. Are the department heads included on that CCIM?
No, it is only council members.
Seems like I never seen one where there was department heads on it. So I apologize. I think personally myself that there's a reason why department heads are not included on that, but I would look forward to it on that. Then they're seeing.
Well, I can send an email to each one of the department heads, but if they can put it on the public Facebook or private Facebook, why can it not be put on the website? They can take that extra 30 seconds and put it on the website.
That's good information for us. I apologize.
Must take exception. You did get one response, I believe.
You did respond to me about being able to come to this meeting, and I appreciate that. But there was no response as far as why the information is not on the website.
Well, we'll talk to Mr. Call about that and see what we can do to improve it.
Stephanie Casey, I am a North Ogden resident. First of all, I just want to say thanks for supporting North Ogden Police. I'm really excited and happy about that, and to have Chief Winnie continue. My second comment, I'm trying to do this right, but parks, we're going to be doing things at the amphitheater, but there's a 10 to 12 foot drop off right off the grass. It's been there for a while, for years. I mean, we cannot have events there with kids running into the hollows with this drop off right there. It is concerning. It scares me. There is a lot of maintenance issues, and I'm mostly frustrated at Councilwoman Ekstrom's response to Dallin. I don't know why you didn't ask Tiffany. She's on maternity leave.
it's tough for citizens to get up here and do this, to speak, to take as much time as he did to put into this. It's not to be mean. The pushback, the feeling that we are uninformed, just angry minority that's loud is getting old. I'm involved and I'm here because I care. And I know the same happens there. And you may not always agree and it may not always be pretty, but this is our city as well. These are our homes. This is where our kids live. This is where I've invested. And I think that sometimes the response a little bit better than that is deserved. Thank you.
Thank you. Ellen?
Dylan Barker. I'm a North Ogden resident. And I want to thank you guys for keeping North Ogden Police Department here. I mean, I've had very little interaction with them, which that's what I try to do. But just seeing how much work the chief has put into the city in the last couple months that I've started to get involved has been very eye-opening, and I thank him for that, because I mean, he looked at intersection on 2100 and Fruitland. That presentation was what, like 6 weeks ago? And he came today and had data and went, look, I presented data then that I was pretty sure was accurate, and now I have actual data and it's what I was predicting. So, I mean, I see it. And along with the website does suck. You cannot find anything. I mean, it really does need to be addressed. It's bad, and I don't know what the answer is, but it is not very user-friendly. I think it's kind of ridiculous that you have to open the agenda just to find a Zoom meeting link. I've had plenty of people say, well, where's the link? Where's the link? Well, you have to open the agenda. It doesn't make that much sense as to why it's not. Front page, hey, council meeting tonight, here's a link. I've done this much web page design, and I know how hard it is to get text to appear on a home page. It takes 5 seconds. It's not hard. Again, I want to thank you all for your time. I know, Cheryl, it's getting late, but thank you for all you guys do.
Sean Casey, resident. Tonight was weird as Sheriff Arbon should have his ass kicked for how he behaved to and that whole thing, that presentation, presenters and sponsors do that nonsense for their own benefit, not for the benefit of our city. There were things that were said in Salt Lake over these protests that needed to be said. Some stuff happened, sure, but our response as law enforcement wasn't all that great. So I really appreciated how you handled yourself and how sincere and honest you were with Sheriff Arbon. It was ridiculous. And I appreciated when he leaned over your shoulder and mumbled some nonsense, that you have the integrity to share that with us. It was more than brave. You know, as a law enforcement, you carry a gun and you can demand people's respect because you're carrying a gun. And when you have 5 toadies walk in with guns on their hips, that really, really was wrong. That whole thing was wrong. Thank you.
Maybe do we have anybody on Zoom that would like to comment?
We do. Sarah Lansing would like to make a comment.
Sarah?
Yes, my name is Sarah Lansing. I'm a North Ogden resident. I would just like to comment on the Dallon's presentation on the parks. So for the last 2.5 years, I've been running a blog, Weber County, Utah Playgrounds.com, where we help people find, advocate, and explore for playgrounds, you know, in Weber County specifically, and in North Ogden. I started the advocacy part because of the maintenance issues, in part from North Ogden Parks. where I took my kids in, starting in 2017 or 18. And at the time, most of the issues were concerning broken swings or missing swings. And after multiple attempts to report the damage by telephone, I did set up a meeting with the North Ogden Parks Department. And to their credit, after the meeting, all the issues that we had talked about were resolved within 3 months. So I really do appreciate that. But I mean, as shown today, there's still lots of damage and issues with the parks, 2.5 years later. I'm sure some of them have been addressed by the Parks Department and some of them may not have, but I'm not sure. I can't comment to the, whether they know about them. But I would love to see more thorough safety inspections on a regular basis, so the public can see that, that it is being addressed and the issues being talked about at least. I just think if we neglect our issues, whether they're big or small, we won't help the safety of our parks or the trust of our residents and the communities members that use them. And if we don't fix all the issues timely, instead of the, like they talked about, the 3-year, total fixes, I think the only solution we'll find is that we have to remove all the elements in our parks completely. I know some of the other cities with similar playgrounds as old as ours, like Harrisville, have started taking out their play structures. This year, Millennium Park and Harrisville Park had to take out their play structures, and I don't want to see that. I would rather just deal with the issues now, or at least try to fix some of the smaller issues so we don't just lose some of our biggest assets. So that's all.
So, do you have anyone else?
Not at this time.
Do we have anyone present here that would like to make additional comments? Matt?
So, hi, my name is Matt Myers, I'm a resident. I emailed about planting some trees in my yard. It's just about planting some bushes along my backyard. I actually came and talked to John a year or 2 ago, and he went over the whatever the city about corner lots and height restrictions and hedges and things like that. And where my house is, it's a bit different than just like a regular. I have fences on my whole sides. I have the concrete wall down 2,600 along one of my edge back edges. It's kind of a small block. So I'm basically hoping to get the go ahead to be able to plant along that east side in my.
Now, what's the ordinance that's causing the problem here? Why can't he plant?
I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't remember this conversation. I'm not sure where the property is that we're talking about.
It's just behind Louise.
300 and 2,700. Better east and
Right there across from the America First lot that they own right by Cafe Rio.
I guess the question is, there some ordinance that prevents Matt from doing this?
So what I was told was you can't have more than like 7 foot tall, something that's like a hedge or anything like that if you're a corner.
Is it a visibility issue? Is that what you've got?
I'm sure that's why the ordinance is there, but where I'm planting it wouldn't be
So we do have sorry.
No, go ahead.
We do have an issue in our ordinance that says if it's a hedge and looks and feels like a fence, that it is limited to height, because it's a nuance in our ordinance that talks about basically natural fences, and then we have a fence height restriction. That must be what it's tied to. I'll have to do some more research though.
John, will you look at that and can we get back to Matt as soon as possible?
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Matt.
Which is a great question. So the picture of the trees that you have back there, that's what you'd like to plant?
That's actually a picture of a house just down the road that has that on Pleasant View Drive.
This one?
Yeah. Yeah.
You said that wall that's down in the corner is actually a 12-foot wall, right?
I believe I measured 12 feet, yeah. Yeah, the white vinyl fence there is 7 feet. Back of these, and then that wall's 12 feet concrete. Sound very good.
Okay, Matt, John is going to look at the ordinance and see what we can do there.
Appreciate it.
Help you there. Okay, is there any comments?
Not at this time.
Okay, does anyone from the council, mayor, or staff have the courage to make any comments with Councilmember Stoker's concerns?
Well, I do, just,
Okay. Okay.
Tiffany had sent an email to all of us about the info, is it UV protect, she's got to have permission to order the UV for the splash pad at the pool. So I found one for, I think, 18,000. So I think we need to give her the go ahead.
The health department's requiring it, so an option. Right.
So just make sure she gets.
And she's actually on here. She just raised her hand. So
Would we need a budget amendment for that?
Would that be RDA? Tiffany's concern is that she needs to get it ordered before the 27th, and we have our budget amendment scheduled, so it's on the list. But she needs to get it.
Can we make a budget amendment tonight, Evan?
No.
So
Well, it's order doesn't have to be paid for till after the budget amendment.
it's just making sure the council has some comfort level with what's being proposed, because it won't be paid for and installed until after the 27th.
That's not an option.
No, it's not. We have to do it, but she needs to go ahead, so.
Yeah, any problems? I don't see any problems in the council. So we'll wait for Evan to put that on the official budget thing, but probably ought to get it over. Okay. Anything else? Staff, council?
Did you say Tiffany had her hand raised, Katie?
she is on, yes.
Okay, let's hear from Tiffany. If you
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple of things. I wanted to thank you, council, for your time tonight, and also thank Dallin for his presentation. I think I can speak for our entire Parks and Recreation Department when I say that we appreciate the involvement of concerned residents that love the community they live in and work with the city staff to make our city a wonderful place to live. I want all the residents and the council members to know that at Parks and Recreation, our door is open, literally, with the recent changes in restrictions. So come on in, give us a call, send us an email. We're here to help, and we value the opportunity to make improvements. There will always be room to improve. I also just want to take a quick minute to publicly recognize our park superintendent, Jesse Felter. I'm fortunate enough to work with him daily, and I see behind the scenes his care for and dedication to making the most of the resources he has to provide our community with exceptional parks and facilities. So thank you for your time tonight.
Any other comments from staff or council? Seeing none, then we'll enter into item 17, which is a discussion or action to consider entering into a closed meeting. Discuss character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual. Do we have a motion to recess the active agenda and enter into a closed meeting? So moved. So moved by Councilman Swanson. Do we have a second? Second by Councilmember Severing. Any discussion? All in favor? say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will excuse everyone but city council and John. Yeah, I gotta do it.
Clark, thanks for being here today. What's that? You too. You missed me? Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm getting here. Yeah. Just, no, I'll get with you. Thank you. Thanks, Susan. Great, thanks. Sorry about that. Well, chief.
You guys are awesome. Thank you. And then turn off the mics as well.